Speaking of thoughts, do you have thoughts on Grendizer U?
Oh yeah, he didn't watch this one either.
No, because it's goddamn Saudi Arabian government propaganda, and I refuse to. You just want to go right into an intro, or
I mean, might as well. We don't have anyone that we're trying to like
we don't have anyone.
ease into things.
Yeah, we don't have anyone we're trying to rizz up, so we're just gonna go right into the intro of hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Weeb Crew. I'm your host, Psyotic, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Mumi.
I will murder these dogs one day.
Oh, are they going off right
you.
now? God damn it.
No, they just started and then they stopped.
Oh, okay. So they were literally like, they can somehow sense. They have an extrasensory perception of.
They were trying to get in the intro.
Yeah. Okay.
they're just saying hello. They're still here. I will murder them someday.
We don't have a guest today. It's just Mumi and I.
No.
For once.
Yeah.
When was the?
Well, okay. So, we can give some context. I'm Mumi, by the way.
Yes.
I didn't say hi yet.
Okay. It's true.
Hello.
Hello.
No, so for context, I think we've talked about it on here, that we kind of started doing seasonal tryout kind of things.
Yes.
We started taking to watching like the first episode of every seasonal that comes out that's not a sequel, right?
Yes.
So like I'm not watching the first episode of season 2 of Tower of God. I didn't watch the first season.
I didn't watch the first season. Season 2 means nothing to me.
Right. So we started trying things out.
Yes.
And it's been interesting. It's been a good way for me personally to like keep up with seasonals.
Yeah.
Because like now that we're kind of watching it as like a group watch, and it's like, okay, X day is when we're watching these shows because they came out that day. It makes it much easier for me to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also kind of gives you some accountability where it's like, okay, you're watching these shows because that's what you're watching this day, and you miss it, then you just reschedule or whatever.
Yeah, you can. I think it's easier. I mean, this won't work for everyone, but it's easier for us to catch up like that, generally speaking. Of course, we say that we watch like the first episode of every new anime in a season, and people are like, "How on earth are you capable of doing?" We have no lives. We have no social lives. We are fucking losers. Who don't do anything except watch anime and record podcasts and work on videos.
Well, you say that, but part of the reason why we're recording this late is because I had to go out and eat. This is social for once in my life.
I'm going to be honest, I was getting kind of annoyed because I'm like, dog, we need to record. For context, this should be out on like Monday the 14th. It's currently 11:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, October the 12th. So let's see how this turns out.
It's fine. There's 2 of us.
But
how much work could that be?
So we ended up watching the first episode of basically everything that was new for the summer 2024 season. Did like our tryouts, whatever. And we ended up watching like 20 some anime this season.
Yeah, so we don't continue watching all of it.
No, God,
but
no.
like, there's quite a few that we're like, oh, this is, even though it's not like, this isn't going to be anime of the year, this is, kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, well, it's
something to watch.
It's what we've talked about a lot, where there are a lot of shows that air every season where it's like, either I'm going to watch it while it's airing or I'm never going to come back to it. So might as well watch it now.
Yeah, well, and I guess we'll kind of highlight when we're talking about a show like that.
Yeah.
But we'll since we watch so much, I was like, we don't generally do like episodes on just like a specific anime, or we haven't done them on seasons and stuff.
No.
But I was kind of like, you know what? We watched like 20 anime.
Yes.
And I would not mind talking about some of them.
Well, it's either that we do like a seasonal episode, like one for every like season, or we do an episode where we talk about every anime that we watched in a year, which was what we did last time. But I don't want to talk about 80 anime in like a single episode of this podcast. That's no.
it'd be. I figured it would be better for us to do a seasonal wrap up.
Yes.
So that way we could talk about, the shows that we would kind of skim over at a yearly wrap up. Because it's like, oh, this isn't like the anime of the year. This isn't in the top 10. So just kind of like whatever, kind of give some thoughts, move on.
And
whereas this way, it's like, well, we could talk a little bit about it.
And it allows us to be a little bit more, on the ball, talking about things that are, a little bit more fresh in people's mind, a little bit more trendy.
And we can remember what we're talking about.
That's true. Speaking of new and trendy and a hot topic, let's talk about Look Back.
Yeah, we both watched Look Back here recently.
We both watched.
Not really a summer seasonal one.
No, but it is new, and it's a movie that just came out, so why not talk about it? It's also very good. I think you just want
to talk about it because you really liked it.
Yes, did you not?
I quite liked it.
Okay, I don't know why you're like insinuating.
I rated it pretty high. Well, because it seemed like it was like a favorite of yours, whereas like
it's definitely up there.
I like it a lot. But I don't know if it's like it didn't change my life. You know what I mean?
That's true. Like, a lot of people have had more that response.
Yeah, it seems like it's more on that side for you, which is fine. I'm not saying like it's not a bad show or anything.
It kind of ruined my day for a couple of days afterwards because it's a really sad movie. It's like the perfect because we've talked about like cry porn before, and that's it's a pejorative term, use it just be like, oh, it's just cry porn. But no, it's like it is a really good movie at making you feel incredibly sad at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything against cry porn, so I don't view it as a pejorative.
Well, no, but like the term itself has like a negative connotation
for most people.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it because it's a social contract. Like I know what you're trying to do, and I'm here for it.
Yes, and
I'm not gonna insult you and belittle you for trying to accomplish your goal.
And I feel like this movie, Look Back, accomplishes its goal very, very well. If I was not, we both saw this in theaters, not the same theater.
No,
but we both saw it in theaters, and I feel like had I been watching this at home, I probably would have just been bawling my eyes out.
Yeah, it got pretty emotional.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is. I think so. You compared this to A Japanese Boy Who Draws.
Yes,
and so like after I watched it, I'm kind of thinking about. I'm like, this is much more character okay, it's much more like duo focused.
Yeah,
because there's a similar-ish sort of relationship in Japanese Boy Who Draws.
Yeah,
but you don't. The other character is more of like a plot device,
right?
Which I think in that works.
Like it's not like 20 minutes long, so
yeah, like you're not gonna be able to flesh out that other character a whole lot.
Sure,
they flesh them out enough.
Here they have much more of an ongoing dynamic,
right? Yeah, it's based around how they interact together. Their dynamic. And I got you get really invested in that, even though it's not very long.
No, but it's very, very well executed for the time that you get.
Yeah. I quite liked it. I think for me, having A Japanese Boy Who Draws is a relatively recent experience. It's not. I mean, what 2022, 2021?
No, that came out like.
It was not like
2019.
Yeah, but I mean, like we didn't watch it in 2019.
Oh no. I think we watched it like maybe 2020. I'll have to go back and check, but
I think it was 2021. But,
something like that.
It's recent enough that it's like kind of still fresh on my mind.
Yeah,
when you're like, comparing it, I think for me, Look Back like I don't feel like it utilized its presentation enough for me to like get super like the same way as I did with Japanese Boy Who Draws. Sure, like A Japanese Boy Who Draws, a big thing of the presentation is like it incorporates it into the theme.
It's very constant throughout A Japanese Boy Who Draws, which, to be fair, again, it's 20 minutes versus like an hour-long feature. That isn't to say, I would say that the production, like just on the production side of stuff, Look Back is kind of insane. Like animation,
it is very good.
It is remarkable. I think it was mostly a lot of it was done by the director whose name I am now blanking on. Kanata?
You call yourself a fucking look back fan? It's Kiyotaka Oshiyama.
Yeah, him. I think he did most of the animation, or at least that's what he said. Did you watch like the post movie like interview?
Yeah. It did say he was like kind of explaining like the skipping. And stuff like that.
And like the general philosophy, which I really like, and I would hope to see this in just more anime in general, where he's like, there was a conscious decision to almost like leave in the mistakes and sort of like the rough key art animation to give it more of that sort of like indie feel, which is another reason it did remind me of A Japanese Boy Who Draws, is it does have a sort of like independent production feeling to it, which, you know, similar to something like Ongaku, which I think ties in to the overall themes of the work very well.
Yeah, the choice for the art style to like keep in those kind of rough sketch lines do kind of pay homage to the artist, right? Like, it's not polished to a point you're removing style from it.
Yeah, well, it's something I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but part of the reason I really like independent animation is that something like Vapor Trail, this series by this animator on YouTube called Ash. I would highly recommend checking it out. You look at it and it obviously has like a very, very rough style. It's phenomenal to be made by one person, but there's a very, very rough, limited style to it. But at the same time, you can then very directly tell that it was made by someone. Whereas you look with basically any professional TV production for anime or movie production, and for any given frame of animation, it's going to pass through the hands of like, you know, at least like 5 different people, you know, between like the key animator, second key animation, animation director, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, I guess to be fair, that's like the appeal of like Sakuga like fans, right? It's because like those cuts have a very distinct style. But even those like go through the kind of cleaning and stuff like that. They're not necessarily, the key animator is not necessarily the one that's like coloring it and cleaning it up.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like with independent animation, you can get just that sole person's hand from like start to finish, from, you know, the very beginning to the finished product. And I think Look Back does a very good job at maintaining that while also still providing a overall visually cohesive end product.
You say visually cohesive, but it's interesting because it does like change throughout the film where like the characters do look different. I think he actually said it in an interview where it's like he kind of didn't really want to make it really stringent as far as like keeping characters on model. And so like the Fujina at the end when she's older kind of looks like a different art style than like the Fujina you got the first part of this, like the movie.
Yeah.
Because like it's just kind of naturally progressed and they didn't really like make an effort to change it back to like and keep it consistent.
Yeah. Which again, similar to A Japanese Boy Who Draws, but in that it's again much more exaggerated and heavily stylized. Though I do really like what they did with like the manga sections in this movie as well, where it sort of like harshly shifts art style.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the budgetary kind of art style of like the keep in line with the kind of choppy four coma thing.
or for Kiyomoto's art style, like it gets like very like detailed suddenly. Because that's like reflective of like her own art style. But yeah, I cannot recommend Look Back enough. If this comes out on time, I think it's gonna have more showings depending on where you're at. I would highly recommend going and seeing it because I'm a shill for G-Kids. Or I don't know.
I mean, what did you think about the theming of it? Because I kind of talked about this in my blog a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I started watching people's videos on it because like I always like to just get different perspectives, whatever.
Sure.
Didn't necessarily get a whole lot of different perspectives, but
no.
A lot of people like latched on to the idea that this is like you know, a love letter to like artists and creativity and stuff like that.
Sure.
And they kind of talk about, Miyamoto? Kiyomoto.
Yeah.
And Fujina's relationship being like the author and fan relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's definitely an element of that.
But
I think I feel like it's more like Fujina and Kiyomoto are like two halves of Fujimoto. Right?
Yeah.
That's the naming convention for him.
Right. Well, because like Fujino obviously is a lot stronger in terms of like being able to like put like something together. You look at like, you know, Kiyomoto's a really good artist, but you know, Fujino is able to just immediately like actualize like a Yonkama like sequence, just like seemingly just like, you know, on a whim.
Right.
So in the way that like their paths end up diverging is that, you know, Fujino ends up becoming, you know, very professional, and you could tell that like, you know, as time goes on, it's definitely like taking a toll on her as it goes on. Whereas like, you know, Kiyomoto wants to, you know, go to school, become a better artist, and sort of, you know, pursue her passion in her own way. Which again kind of reminded me of the dynamic in a Japanese boyhood draws, where, you know, the main character, you know, grows up, goes to art school, becomes a professional mangaka, and is basically just continually beat down by the industry, whereas his friend basically, you know, doesn't necessarily like improve his art, but stays true to his own artistic voice and ends up being able to achieve success in his own right. So again, it's a similar sort of interesting dynamic between the two.
Yeah, I think
it makes me wonder if it was like, look back, was it all influenced by that? If
that's a good question, because I guess like the manga would have came out 2020. Is that when it was?
Yeah, so it makes me wonder if Fujimoto had like so it came out like 2021, 2022. It's fairly recent. Yeah, so it makes me wonder if like Fujimoto may had seen it and like gotten like some ideas from that.
I mean, it's not not like it's a popular
no,
or anything,
but
it's not like you could be like, oh, definitely, but
there are some interesting parallels for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to like make the distinction that like, while they are different characters, like I think they're supposed to represent less so like a fan creator dynamic and more like the creator being a fan dynamic.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know, for me it kind of is a weird message if you just look at it as like that same like creator fan dynamic.
I feel like it's like a cynical reading of it.
Yeah, like it's because like, oh, you're behind me, and like I get like the Fujina is like, you know, a flawed person and there's like a codependent relationship, and it's that I think that's intentional, where it's like you should just stay here, you should just follow me, blah blah blah, that thing. As far as like the implication of like saying like a fan is always gonna be behind you, that seems very strange.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's necessarily the message it's going for. So it's weird that like people hone in on that dynamic specifically, and I'm like, I think it's more like,
I feel like
Fujimoto
that also
was
kind
saying
of
like his
weirdly with the obvious parallel, you know, minor spoilers to talk about things in a more vague way, the obvious references to the Kyoto animation fire in the movie.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, yeah, if you have that reading, it's kind of like, what is it saying about that then? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it's important for like the context to just keep in mind that it's like two halves of Fujimoto, and so it then becomes relevant in that later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, and then people like kind of focus on like the time traveling kind of thing element. It's like, I don't know if it's necessarily that. I mean, I think it's like, you know, it's kind of artistic license. Yeah. I don't know if you necessarily have to like focus it on that as like a sci-fi element.
I interpret it as basically being akin to the opening Yonkama strip with like the meteor and stuff, where it's like, you know, against like all odds, against like, you know, the rationality of reality, your paths still cross in some way.
Yeah. And it literally could just be like a mundane explanation that just happens to be a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be sci-fi.
No. we don't need like a 40-minute lore video explaining the ending of Look Back.
Explaining the timelines of Look Back.
It's like I don't know. It's that's not really the point. There's a greater sort of idea being communicated that's kind of being missed.
I think you said that was like your favorite anime this year so far.
Yeah, I would say so. And I would be very surprised if anything ends up topping it. It's currently sitting at my favorites, and I keep thinking about maybe bumping it off. And I look at my list and I'm like, God, fuck. It's really like tough because it's so good. It's really good. Also, just like surprising coming from, because we have our exposure to like Fujimoto's work prior was the Chainsaw Man anime, and this is such a different beast from that. It's a very different kind of story, which is very interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, structurally and kind of like aesthetically, I feel like I definitely can see like the introspection in both. I think this is obviously much more focused on that element than Chainsaw Man. Man's focused on like you have the demon stuff and the battle shonen elements and all that, whereas this is just like a short, self-contained story.
Right. It makes me almost like think of like Fujimoto has like that sort of like Scorsese mentality of like one for them, one for me, you know?
Except I think he did a lot for himself in between the two parts of Chainsaw Man he was working on, because I think he did a lot of one-shots in that period, didn't he?
So he did Look Back, Goodbye Area, and I think one other one name's evading me, and then
some like sisters one.
Yeah, and he's done like a number, like a collection, like 2-volume collection of like some of his like older stuff through like the 2010s. Was also released a few years ago as well. So he has like a lot of stuff outside of like his like Jump series of like Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch Jump. In any case, his big like serialized series. He has like a lot of like smaller one shot like side stuff, which is very interesting. And yeah, it definitely has like a different vibe to it.
But yeah, that's Look Back. Check it out.
Yeah,
take a look.
Yeah,
get back to it.
Take a look.
Come on down and take a look at Look Back.
You don't have to do that.
Oh, okay.
And we're instead gonna talk about. Now we're just gonna.
So I think we should kind of establish how we're going to talk about these.
I was about to do that, then you interrupted me.
I thought you were just going straight to the next one.
No, I was gonna be like, all right, now we're gonna talk about. We're just gonna go through like the most popular.
Okay, I'll let you do it. You're taking it. I'll sit on my hand.
No. Go ahead. Say it. Say it.
Okay. So the idea was we're gonna go through all that we watched this season.
Yes.
In descending order of popularity.
And say.
However, we were going to save our top 5s for the end.
Yeah.
Which I think we got like a 3-show overlap. I think there's only 2 shows on both our top 5s that are unique to ours.
You won't.
So essentially, we're just pushing
4.
Essentially, we're just pushing off the best, well, the ones that we like the most to the end.
Also, like some carryovers from like the spring 2024 season.
Yeah, which we should. I guess we'll start with those.
I guess. Yeah.
If you just want to know our top 5s, I'm sure there's like a timestamp at the end or whatever.
If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform,
good luck.
Also, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell your friends about us.
Rate us on Apple Podcasts.
Give us like a rating or a thumbs up or something. I don't know. It probably helps.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. Buy some stickers and put them up around your local college campus. And if you don't live near a college campus, gas station bathrooms work just as well. So let's talk about the Spice and Wolf remake then, if we're gonna do like series that were carried over.
So what did you think about the Spice and Wolf remake?
I thought it was a pretty good remake. It would have been an interesting question if I would have, if this wasn't necessarily as good of a remake, because it's going to adapt. It already has adapted much more of the material than the original 2 seasons. So then it's like, oh, well, you should just watch like, the original anime, and then, then you can pick up the new one at like this episode. But no, I would say you're perfectly good to just start with the new show, honestly. I think
we had an interesting debate about this like 10-ish episodes in, because I remember that tweet popped off.
Oh, talking about like the weird perspective and like layout issues.
The perspectives of for context, anyone that's seen it, it was the scene in the sewers where Holo transforms for the first time.
Yeah.
And they were comparing how both of them handled the visuals for that. And then I think they're basically like shitting on the new one. And I remember me and Lex were like, the new one's fine? Like,
yeah, it's not terrible.
What?
It's not unwatched. Like, there's like, if you watch the scene and you're really paying attention, you can pick up on things like, oh, the wall behind them, it's like either really close to them or it gets really far away. It's not really clear like the dimensions of the space. But as far as like, there's a lot more I think that goes into like a TV anime visually than just that. And
yeah,
it's not like it's like completely unwatchable. And there are problems visually with the new anime, but it's not like the
there
original.
Are problems with both though.
Yeah.
Like it's not like the original was like fucking like substantially better, and the remake is like fucking just
complete. It's not like we're going from Berserk to Berserk 2016.
Right. Yeah. It's not that drastic of a jump.
Spice and Wolf's strong point as an anime has never really been its visual presentation. It's always been the character dynamic and dialogue between Holo and Lawrence.
I remember we were talking about like, because you can just like, yeah, if you like the original visuals and like the stuff they've done, you're kind of coming into this with that in mind. I can see you being disappointed because it's not going to capture it the exact same way.
I saw people like complaining about like, because like Holo has a bit of a different design from the way she looked back in like, what was it, like 2007, 2008. But I would also say that like
it is pretty like true to the light novel.
I think it's still pretty. It's, if anything, I think closer to what Holo looks like in like the light novel art than the original anime.
But
as far as like pacing wise, it's pretty much identical to the original anime.
Up until the second half.
Yeah, I think it deviates a little bit.
They did get through that arc, because I remember that being like the entire second season.
Oh, the arc with where Lawrence gets cucked.
Yeah. Whereas like in this, like they covered an entire arc after that.
That's
in the
true,
same amount of time. So yeah, they had to speak. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen the 2008 adaptation.
I didn't really feel any pacing issues watching this new one.
No, like, yeah, you don't feel that there's like, oh, what they're like blowing through this. What the fuck?
I will say it was like a little bit, it did feel like a little bit slower just overall watching material that we're already familiar with be covered. But once it got into like that new arc at the end, it was like, oh, this is, moving along pretty well. Once I don't know what's going to happen and how they resolve the conflict in this arc, it's more engaging, I'd say.
And I think they already announced they're doing more. So.
Yeah, you're going to be doing, I think, based on that first scene, and I guess also the last scene of this new anime, it seems like they're going to be going for a full adaptation, which
they're gunning for it.
Yeah, they're gunning for it.
They're going for
Hopefully they do, because I mean, a lot of people really like Spice and Wolf. A lot of people really want to see it like fully animated. And again, yeah,
of all the properties.
Yeah,
that could get full adaptations. I think Spice Wolf's one that deserves it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the light novel's been over for quite some time, and it's still like, just really popular. Yeah, I would say that if you are interested in Spice, you can watch the original anime. or you can, just start off with this new one. It's not really a huge divide. It's not like, the original is telling a completely different story like Full Metal Alchemist 03 or anything like that.
No, I think this is a situation where it's basically like a good manga gets a good adaptation in the sense of like, if you watch the original Spice and Wolf, there might be things that you were attached to in the original that you're not going to get out of this one.
Yeah.
But like, that's just purely preference. There's not like, no one's going to point to the new one and be like, this is fucking garbage, how it handled X, Y, or Z. You should just watch the original.
Yeah.
It's just like, pick your poison.
Yeah, pick your poison, and if you feel like you want to continue past where, like, if you end up going with the original anime, just pick up the new one. Voice acting, pretty on point still. Same voice actors, still really good chemistry, really good dynamic. Got that Kevin Penkin score just going off.
Love Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon. Is it Kevin Penkin or Kevin Penkin? I never actually heard his last name said. I think it's Penkin.
I don't know. I've never looked it up and tried to figure it out.
But yeah, Spice and Wolf, pretty good. I think I probably liked it.
Speaking of pretty good.
Yeah, I think I probably liked it more than you, Mumi, which is why we'll now talk about something that you liked more than me.
You didn't like the Fable?
I liked the Fable all right. I think it's one of those things.
I did all right.
What the fuck was that? I think it's one of those things where if I may at some point just have to go back and like rewatch it or reread it, and just like kind of go in with like a better idea of what kind of story it's going to be telling.
Yeah,
because this is a weird story.
It is unconventional for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like stylistically as an anime adaptation, it would all just click into place for people if it was just cell animated.
Yes.
And everybody would be like, oh, duh.
If this were made 30 years ago, it would be considered a classic.
Yeah.
I think
like it literally just feels like a 90s or 80s show.
Put someone make an edit where you put like a shitty, awful cell filter over it, and it'll be like, we've fixed it, quote unquote.
We got it.
We did it.
Figured it out.
That or I was also thinking to myself like, maybe I think I might also just prefer seeing this as like a J drama, which there is like a live action like movie adaptation, or is it a TV series?
I don't know.
There is a live action adaptation though that I do want to see because, I mean, this is like an absurd like Yakuza story.
It is. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, you got a weird, quirky main character.
Very autism coded. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but
it's him and Laios from Dungeon Meshi, the two autistic kings of 2024.
Oh, that sounds like a banger video. Autism kings.
One really loves killing, the other one really loves eating, cooking.
I mean, killing kind of goes hand in hand.
That's true. That's true. They'd be unstoppable together.
Do you think he would? He probably wouldn't enjoy cooking all that much because he doesn't like eating hot food.
We throw in the main character from Votoms, the characters from Shoshimin series, and boom, the autistic Avengers have been assembled.
Fucking Camille from Zeta.
But yeah, you sell the Fable.
So I guess for anybody. We didn't summarize Spice and Wolf.
Everyone fucking knows. I guess
it doesn't need an introduction.
Yeah.
But the Fable is basically just like a hitman is tasked with kind of living a normal life and laying low for a year, and so he gets into just mundane hijinks in this new town, being supported by the Yakuza.
Yeah, mundane hijinks that end up spiraling out of control again and again.
In the fucking worst ways.
Yes.
Fucking like, oh, you gotta go murder this dude. Well, I can't.
It's not really like a slow life kind of series.
It's very funny though.
It is.
Like you described it, and it sounds like it would be like dramatic, but it's like no, there's like zero stakes to this.
Oh yeah, because
your protagonist this is like a superhero essentially.
Yeah, the main guy is just really silly, but not like I'm the Joker, baby. Like he has like this like just deadpan absurdity to him.
Yeah, very cool too. Like it's very stylish, very funny. The main appeal I feel like is the characters.
Yeah.
Like if you aren't invested in the characters and the interactions, your mileage is probably gonna vary.
Yeah.
From mine.
Probably not very, very well. Like I think that may have been also part of my issue is like I wasn't this is right up your alley in terms of like character archetypes. Whereas for me it's like, you know, I can enjoy it, but it's not necessarily like my like extreme preference.
Yeah, it's not very action heavy, despite the fact that it's about like assassins and shit.
No, but also it's, I mean, I don't know if the series could handle being action heavy. It is extremely limited animation wise.
But it is very well. It's funny you mentioned the character from Bottoms because it's directed by Takahashi. Is that what his name is? The guy who directed Bottoms and like Flag and stuff like that. So it feels very much like it's been taken out of that era, like of like that kind of old school kind of directorial style.
Yeah, I can actually see that, which probably again leans into the like why we are like this should be cell animated.
Yeah, like literally, if it were just cell animated, nobody would question it.
And just even like just the kind of story it is, it feels like, you know, like a Banana Fish, like something that would have come out in like the 80s, but it's a fairly recent manga, and we're going to say the manga is also really popular.
Was it 2012 or 2017?
I think 2017. Kanata.
It is very recent.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can understand when people are like, I prefer the manga because the manga does look considerably better.
That's true, but
like it's stylistically, visually.
Yeah,
but I don't think this looks bad, and I think it is kind of elevated by the voice acting.
That's true. Yeah, I think that's like the main reason you don't want to watch the anime is like the voice acting. I think definitely adds something to these characters.
Yeah, if it just looked like garbage, I would understand. I would be like, yeah, no, just read the manga because like it'd be like it was a Home Hero.
Oh yeah,
like a couple years back, where it was like we watched it and it was like this would be a cool concept and it looks fucking great in the manga, but this is like a garbage adaptation. If it were that, I would understand, but it's not quite that. It is a competently done anime. It does look pretty good. It's just not. Like it's not like a Oshinoko season 2 or like some kind of like visual fucking
elusive samurai sucking my dick off. Oh my god, the Sakuga. Oh my god.
Oh, I love the Shakuga.
Oh, the Sakuga is sucking my dick.
But no, it is good. It is very good. I would highly recommend checking out the Fable, whether you read the manga or watch the anime. Will it get a season 2? Probably not, but it kind of seemed like they were teasing it.
Yeah, hopefully it does, but
I would appreciate it if it did.
All right,
but I'm not holding my breath.
Now we want to get into the most popular anime of summer 2024.
Yeah, well, I guess right off the bat we'll just say we didn't watch the new Monogatari series yet.
No. Well, I'm
a terrible fucking Monogatari fan.
Fake fan. Mumi hasn't even seen Zoku yet, which was like the big hang up.
But I had to go watch the 6 episodes of that?
Yeah.
I watched those so I could watch the new season.
Yeah.
And although I think the new series is still
ongoing. So yeah, there's still time left.
And I do want to watch Kimi ni Todoke.
Oh,
at some point.
That got a season 3 out of nowhere.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk about either of those.
No.
We will talk about, however.
Yes.
Alya speaks in Russian. Whatever
something like that. It's the Russian girl anime.
The Russian girl anime. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
If you don't know, then I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. It's good. I liked it.
I think I described this as the most Reddit anime I've ever seen.
Oh my fucking god. I mean, I know what you mean in terms of like I close my eyes, I can just visualize like different frames of this anime being used for like our Annie memes, like type stuff.
There is that. The protagonist is literally just like a Redditor's wet dream. Yes, I'm also the smartest in my class, and I just don't apply myself.
The main character's sister is also a Redditor's wet dream.
Well, I mean, to be fair, she's a lot of people's wet dream.
She is the best character in the show.
It's not even a contest.
Not even a
honestly.
contest. Never have it. It's been a while since I've seen it like an anime like this where best girl, the competition has not even really been fair.
She just like completely eclipses the character that the show is named after.
Yes, the Russian tsundere. I mean, she's good. I like Alya, but yeah, I like the sister more.
Yeah, the sister has so much better characters. Like, she's just much more likable as like a character. Like, not to say that Alya is not likable.
No, yeah,
but doesn't have nearly the screen presence as the sister character Yuki does.
Let me be clear. I like the show overall quite a bit. It's interesting because it feels much older than it actually is. This feels like something that would be like contemporary with like Origairu, you know? Like a light novel romance that would have come out in like the early 2010s, late 2000s. But this is like fairly recent. This came out in like a couple of years ago. And
I guess I see what you mean. But I guess I just don't think Origairu is that old. So I'm just like, it seems appropriate to me.
I don't know. I feel like romance, you don't necessarily see these kinds of romance stories necessarily like being done all that much anymore. It's moved on.
Yeah, they're kind of falling out of style.
Yeah. You do still have like the sort of like really like defined main girl archetype that you see in something like Nagatoro or Komi-san, where now she's a tsundere girl that speaks Russian to conceal her feelings. Also, the main character knows Russian because he was childhood friends with a Russian girl.
Well, it's an interesting setup.
Childhood friend was.
I think we did guess this. I think me and Lex spoiled ourselves on it just because we were curious.
Yeah, I spoiled myself on it, and then we were talking about it, and then you two just ended up spoiling yourselves on it. I did not spoil you. You just like
really
looked it
stupid.
up. And it is very, very silly, but it's fine.
It's fine. It's just silly.
What?
It is an interesting concept as like, because you're basically like giving your protagonist a cheat code.
Yeah, to perceive
in a way that's not necessarily like
inner thoughts.
Yeah, it's just kind of silly that she has to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, okay, I could see the rationalization behind it of like, oh, I could say this, and I kind of get a rush because I'm saying things out loud, but he can't understand me. I guess that's an element to it. It is an interesting setup to kind of give your main protagonist like an in or a head start or whatever, because he does understand the language she's speaking, and so he kind of like cuts through the interaction of like a tsundere, right? Like you don't have to like try to determine what.
None of this matters.
Like very
None
easy.
of this matters. This whole season is based around an election arc. I hope you like politics, everyone, because this romance series is going to be focused on them trying to win like the high school president election.
Yeah, the student council debates.
Student council debates.
I mean, I guess they're running against his sister.
Yeah.
Who's doing the I want to be the final boss of anime thing.
Yeah.
Which is fun. But yeah, it basically just amounts to him doing cool things.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the main character has so many cool moments where it's like, yeah, he's the cool guy.
Yeah, he's the Redditor's wet dream. he's like you said, he's just like fucking like Hachiman or something from.
He does have that sort of like energy to him, though. I would say that
same energy.
Hachiman is like that's a little bit more deliberate in terms of how that's executed in Snafu than with this, where it's like that's it, like a character aspect that is like really thoroughly explored in Origairu, whereas here it's just kind of like, yeah, that's just the way he is.
Yeah. I enjoyed it okay. Visually it's solid, like really. I say solid, I mean that in the sense of like there's nothing wrong with it. It is very good at times. It is consistent.
The worst part of the show is that they completely misuse the Haruhi ED by not doing the dance.
Yeah, fuck that. The fuck was that? That fucking pissed me off. I'm like, why even the Haruhi yokai, whatever the fuck? If you're just gonna like have fucking still images, do the fucking dance.
Do the goddamn dance.
If the fucking director for Lucky Star can go up on a mountain and cliff over the ocean and dance to the fucking Lucky Star OP, you can have your goddamn characters dance to the ending of Haruhi when you play the goddamn song. That's all you had to do.
That's all you had to do.
You had one fucking job.
That's one job. Could be worse. Could be Nokotan.
Could be Nokotan, which is the next one on the list because it's the second most popular fucking show. How the fuck is it so fucking popular?
That's not surprising. This had a really successful marketing campaign. I was pretty hyped going into it. And then I watched the first episode and I was like, wow, I didn't laugh once.
This was like the reverse. This is kind of like a similar situation to like Family Guy for me, where it's like anti-comedy.
Yeah.
Where it just actively makes me like cringe and it's painful.
It's
like, what
trying to do like that really absurd sort of comedy, but I feel like its absurdity is fairly limited in terms of the kinds of jokes that it's telling, where a lot of it is just, Nokotan is a deer and he does something weird.
He's a dear girl.
And then you hear the chanting of Shika, and that's the bit.
That's it. That's the joke.
Yeah. Whereas like something like Bobo Bobo is a really good example of like having absurdity that it like over the course of the episode is just constantly compounding on itself to the point that where you end off in the episode is in a completely different spot from where you started. And you're not really sure how you got from A to B, but it happened.
Yeah, so I think for something like Nokotan, you have basically two modes of operation.
Yes.
Like you either have something like a Nichijou, where there's an internal consistency, but things are just revved up to 11.
Yeah.
Right? So like you think of like a Nichijou, like someone, it's just a normal world, and then someone like stubs their toe, and like to convey the pain of stubbing their toe, they shoot a plasma beam out their fucking mouth and eyes, right? And it's just extreme, like it's just exaggerated.
Yes.
Or you go to like a Bobobo, where it's just like a string of consciousness, where it's like not necessarily everything makes internal consistent sense, because you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna do this thing or this thing or this thing.
It feels like ad-libbing, like improvised.
Right. Like it's funny in that way. Nokotan kind of is going for both.
Yeah.
And fails at both of them.
Right.
Because like Nokotan will like, it's like, oh, I'm a deer girl and I can store stuff in my head. But like, that's not really, I mean, it becomes internally consistent, but it's like, you just kind of came out of nowhere. You're like, why would you, okay, she's not a robot.
Right.
What?
Well, it's not like she uses her
antlers as like, explosives.
It's like you like need to like develop that over the course of the episode, basically. Or it's just like a one-off gag that is just like, oh, it happens once and then it's gone, and you're just like, what?
That just happened.
But I mean, a lot of people really liked it. You know, again, it had a very successful marketing campaign. I do like the character designs. I think the girls in it are very cute. I think that's my only point of praise. Just like so superficial.
They made cute girls.
They made cute girls. Hooray! I don't know.
Hooray!
Yeah, it's might be my least favorite thing. No, my least favorite show of the season is coming up next.
This was like bottom 3 for me.
Actually, no, my least favorite of the season is like all the way at the bottom. But the one we're going to talk about next, I liked even less.
Yeah, Wit Studio, swing and a miss.
Swing and a miss. Hey, they're doing different stuff, and I'm here for it at least. There's a better Wit Studio anime that we'll talk about in a bit.
I don't remember what else I did this season. But yeah, I guess the next one that you're dreading talking about is Isekai Shikaku.
I'm gonna kill myself.
Yay! What?
Because the main character
just broke.
The Discord not
it sounded like he sneezed. It was like what?
Yeah, Osamu Dazai is reincarnated in another world. And then that doesn't really have a ton of bearing on the remainder of what happens.
No.
Because it's just a lot of other like fantasy stuff that I would see and a lot of other isekai, and what they end up doing with Osamu Dazai is not enough to carry the show. Which
yeah, I remember we got into an argument about it when we were group watching it in the, not just like you and me, but like whoever was in the chat, because I was like, it seems kind of gross to me, like the premise does. Like I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it if it had done it better. But I was like kind of was saying in the first episode, they kind of just are using his like, because Dazai is a real person, right?
Sure.
And they're kind of just using his, depression and the fact that he like killed himself for like comedy in a way that's very insensitive to it. And it's like this is a figure of like mental health in Japan, essentially.
Sure.
Now when they kind of got into it, there was like flashes of like what I would have wanted out of it, because the whole thing with him is he's like basically sending these people that have been isekai'd to this other world, because like they basically this other world has like brought in like hundreds of fucking people, I guess, to like try to kill this demon king.
All the people from the other world are like all assholes, or most of them are anyway.
A lot of them, yeah. They basically were like given absolute power and it corrupt them absolutely.
Yeah, there's a guy who we get a sympathetic backstory about how he was never accepted in our world because he wasn't allowed to eat people.
That was really stupid. But that was after, because like, so early on, they kind of established that they could use this formula of like, he meets this character, this person that was isekai'd, and kind of hears their story and kind of relays it to him and like writes it down or whatever. And then that's how he sends them back. He basically like rehabilitates this person. Like it was like you being isekai'd was supposed to rehabilitate you, but it failed. And so like now I am kind of bringing reality to you, because conceptually isekai kind of being this like escapist fantasy thing, and then having Dazai, who's a very kind of like grounded no nonsense kind of person who's like kind of just looking at the world in this raw form, come and basically shatter these delusions that you have, makes sense, especially when you're talking about like authors and isekai basically being this amateur author darling genre. And then you have like,
well, it's funny because this is a manga adaptation.
Yeah, but I just mean like in general, isekai kind of being associated with like
you could almost read it as being like these like other worlder characters in the show are like almost like emblematic of like the self-insert characters that you get from a lot of isekai coming off of like shosetsu.
Right. Yeah. So I could see them like going about it in that direction, where it's like kind of still showing reverence to these things. It's not necessarily saying like, oh, this is wrong. Like isekai having a place as far as like rehabilitating people who are having problems in real life or whatever, and being able to give them like a reprieve or an escape. And then Dazai comes in and is kind of confronting them with reality and kind of giving them that next step that they need to move on and, live a fulfilling life kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have been interesting, and they could have done some interesting things with that. However, they kind of show that this like episode 4, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They do it with one character, and then he does like the thing with other characters, but then it's like you said, one guy is like, I want to eat people. And it's like,
what the hell is this? Okay. Damn. All right.
Sure.
Wow. You're a real piece of shit.
And then like some other arcs are like literally just like children. Like it's literally like a 12-year-old wrote like, society
he's so chuny a lot of the time.
He's so fucking like the fucking, there's an arc where like,
he's the Redditor's wet dream.
This is a minor
Mumi.
spoiler. It is. There's a minor but like there's an arc in like one episode where they like come across this town and they're like, oh, we're gonna use this tree. We gotta kick these people out of this town because they're all evil and drug runners. Then like he's like buddying up with someone that's basically like a working girl. She works at a bar or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're all like, yeah, she's evil. She teamed up with the bad guys. And then
there's this paladin.
Through so many turns of events, or whatever, it's revealed that she was actually protecting the whole time, and she's actually the spirit of this tree that they're all living off of. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna start our own drug ring with the tree. And then they run her off, and then the tree dies because she's gone. And they're like, whoa, what happened? And she's like, society. Ran off the thing that protected you. They're all assholes.
Society. Have you seen the Joker sequel yet? Society.
It's like you didn't need Dazai for this.
No.
Like this is just a standard
that's my key
fantasy bullshit.
Is that the relationship that Dazai has with the other characters, especially the main cast, is so undercooked that I can't really describe the relationship that he has with any of these other characters beyond just these other characters like him, and that's it. He doesn't really.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't really, like, a strong interpersonal dynamic, which should be the backbone of the show. And I think that's the core problem with it, is, what it does with Dazai is just not enough.
Literally all it is like, the aesthetic of, like, oh, he's gonna kill himself. It's so perky. Like, literally all his characterization essentially is just being contrarian.
Yeah, and you compare that to, like, Dazai and, like, Bungo Stray Dogs, and I think... One, that's way more absurd and like barely like he wants to kill himself and there's like other like things going on, but it's like it's borrowing the name of Dazai rather than necessarily being Dazai.
Yeah,
and it's not strong enough, and the actual events that happen, there's so much like plot that I just don't care about, and they're like episodes that I'm watching. And we're like halfway through the episode. I'm like, isn't the show supposed to be about Osamu Dazai? He hasn't been in this episode, or it's been like 15 minutes.
And then he comes in at the end.
Yeah, then he comes in at the end and Reddits his way into defeating the enemy.
Not recommended.
No.
Weeb Crew 2 thumbs down.
two Weeb Crew thumbs. 2 diabetic Weeb Crew thumbs down.
My thumb is bulbous and purple, but it's down.
Horribly clubbed fingers.
Let's
talk about someone we liked.
We did like the step sibling one.
Gimai
Seikatsu.
Days with my stepsister or something like that. Days with my step sibling. I don't know. This was kind of a shock, if I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, it did surprise me.
You hear a title like Days with My Stepsister or whatever, and you're like, oh, it's one of those anime.
Oh boy.
But it's not. It's like the complete opposite of that, where the story is, it's like this Brady Bunch like setup, but there's only like 2 siblings. Where dad and the single father with a son and a single mom with a daughter, they get together, and now these 2 kids that are relatively the same age are now living together in the same home. And a lot of what it is just an examination of how immensely uncomfortable and like touchy that sort of like situation would be, and like how do you go about navigating that, especially because, you know, it's not just about, you know, oh, there's now this like, you know, girl living in my house at the same age as me, but you know, you're building a new family now as well. And like the sort of like past trauma that may have come up, you know, in terms of like, well, what happened to their other parents and things like that, sort of like pouring into this and adding in like this whole sort of dynamic of just, this is kind of strange. My phone went off. This is kind of like understandably uncomfortable to navigate if you then start to develop feelings for that other person. And it's like, well, how do you then go about dealing with that without necessarily then detonating your whole family life?
Yeah, because like it's a good setup, because like you're kind of trying to learn to navigate like the sensitivities of like this other person that's now entered your life, but they're not, you didn't grow up with them, you don't know them, they're a stranger essentially, but you're kind of getting closer to
times. A step sibling is nothing but a stranger.
Yeah, but you're like trying to like form this bond for the sake of like your parents, because you want your parents to be happy. And then you start getting a little too close, where you start, because you're in a situation with the opposite sex of someone that you're attracted to, that you're kind of trying to convince yourself you're not supposed to, because we're by law we're siblings now.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting like kind of evaluation of that in a way that's not fetishistic at all. Like,
no,
they could have easily
very
kind of
earnest and grounded and intimate. Not intimate in a fucking deviant way, but like in terms of like exploring like the sort of emotions of this situation.
Yeah, it's very almost like anti-fetishistic, because like
I think
not
that's
like any
like
eroticism
the idea
to it.
is like, so for context, this is not like a light novel adaptation or a manga adaptation. What it is it's an adaptation of a YouTube series that was like, I guess like an audio drama that was periodically released on YouTube and then transformed into, I think then it got like a novelization or a manga and eventually this anime adaptation. And I think the stated goal of it was basically to tell the sort of like archetypal kind of story that you see in like anime and manga, but to play it in like a more tonally grounded way. It's what we call a deconstruction.
Oh, God damn it.
I mean, it certainly, again, subverted my expectations, because I went into this being like, oh, this is going to be kind of like schlock. And it's not. It's
gonna be your emo too.
It's pretty beautifully directed too. I love the audiovisual presentation of this. It's very unique. They're working really well within the limitations of what they have, and I'm definitely going to be paying attention to this director's output going forward if he ends up doing like anything else, because the show has so much like style to it. Lots of like
people are gonna hear you say that and they're gonna think like you're talking about like fucking Elusive Samurai or something.
No.
For context, this is very
it's very
budget
artsy.
friendly. Yeah, but so they put a lot of attention to framing and kind of like unique shot compositions. So it's not like the characters aren't fucking having these massive Sakuga moments. When the style doesn't like dramatically shift, you don't get like a fucking Kari Kano situation.
No, you get these like nice wide shots at like this nice, very like geometric framing. A lot of scenes just take place in the same room, and they manage to find different ways, different perspectives to present the situation from to keep it visually interesting, even though you're just watching two characters sitting at a table talking.
It's kind of like you said, it's intimate, and it kind of makes it voyeuristic, because you're just watching these two characters kind of like try to work through things that are like very private matters, and you're kind of put in a like fly on the wall position where you're kind of like looking at them through like in a dark room, through a hallway, through a door or something, and it's really well done, honestly.
I wasn't able to find a source for this, but I did remember reading somewhere, and I can definitely see the comparisons. Look up the filmmaker Jonas Mekas, Mekas. And that's kind of the style that this has. There's periodic like recap episodes, quote unquote, but they're more like diary entries where the character, either the boy or the girl, are basically recapping the past however many days. And
I think it's usually the girl, because it's usually like going through her journal.
Oh yeah.
Because you get the boy's perspective for the most part.
Yeah.
And then you get the girl's kind of inner monologue through her journal.
And the way it recaps it is it's basically showing these events that you actually may not have even seen, but it has like this like sort of like film, like low quality 8mm film filter over it to present it. There's some really beautiful incorporation of like live action elements at certain points as well. It's got a very, very striking visual style. If you're looking for something that isn't necessarily like popping like an Elusive Samurai, but is much more kind of like subdued and artful, some may say. Yeah, highly recommend at least, giving that first episode a watch. If you fall asleep, then it's your kind of show.
Highly recommend spending some days with your stepsister.
Yeah. Good anime. I think it gets a thumb up from each of us.
2 thumbs up. I don't know if we're doing a thumbs up system.
I guess we are now. So it's a thumb up from Mumi and a thumb up my ass from me.
Oh boy.
This next one on the list, Mumi. We didn't watch this one. What the hell even is this?
You mean the Isekai one?
Yeah. What the hell is that? Are you even doing the ones that we like ended up dropping after the first episode?
Oh, you didn't do Astoria. We didn't do
Astoria, yeah. So,
I mean, we dropped Failure Frame, Chunia.
Oh
show.
yeah, was that Failure Frame? That first episode is really funny. I
figured the next one we were going to talk about. Yeah, it was a funny episode. Like,
let's talk
it's
about
one of those I would probably
show.
watch just as like a kind of like a redo a healer thing.
Oh yeah.
Very stupid. You know what you're getting yourself into, but it's like
this is schlock.
Guilty pleasure indulgence or something.
Let's talk about something we actually enjoyed. Giji Harem.
This one made me want to kill myself.
No, because you started off so positive and then
it just makes you want to kill yourself. I'm like, I will never. This will never. Just I might as well just give up. This is never going to be me.
You're never gonna get.
You'll never be happy.
You're never gonna get a girl who will just act out different anime archetypes for you.
It is the cutest show and simultaneously the most depressing show I've ever seen in my life.
So for context, it's not really a harem show. What it is a boy and a girl in high school, and they're in like this acting club. And what the girl does is she will basically just act out like a tsundere archetype or like is there a gal archetype or just different anime archetype basically.
Kudere, stuff like that.
Kudere.
It's just like it's one of those things that like in your relationship, like you have like, just kind of silly things that you might do in like that dynamic, right? Like you might have like in jokes or something. And their in joke is that he wants a harem and she likes acting, so she like just acts out these different characters.
She's playing different characters in the harem, but it's just these two. And it's
just them. They kind of play off each other, which
very sweet. It's very nice.
Very cute.
Very cute.
It really shows off Saori's like acting chops.
Yeah.
I remember people like kind of not wanting her for this role. Like I remember that being like some kind of like they're like, oh, I don't know, she kind of just does this thing, or I don't think she would be good in this, but she fucking has some range.
She does a really good job. I think that's definitely part of the appeal is like the strong voice acting.
Yeah, it's really her presence as like an actor is probably the main draw of the series. Like if you just don't like her as a character, or like her voice or anything like that, you're just not gonna like the show. Like I don't know how you would like it, but
well, it's interesting too because it took me a couple episodes to really get into it, and I think I started liking it more when you started liking it less, which is when it became a little bit less driven by like these like bits basically where you'll get a scene and there's like some sort of like dynamic going on, and then you'll just get another scene after that with like another sort of comedic bit going.
And that was what happened.
Yeah,
but that wasn't like why I stopped why I started having a problem with it. It was more that like it started focusing less on this like kind of interesting thing that made up the dynamic and like characterize the show, because they stopped doing the harem stuff as much. Like, because like it was showing the progression of them where like he's now halfway through the series, minor spoilers, I guess, but he goes to college or whatever.
Yeah, which was actually really surprising. I was not expecting like that to actually happen.
Yeah. So it shows a progression because they're not necessarily doing the cutesy, like they're not hanging around the school anymore all the time. So they're not doing these cutesy like little interactions anymore as much. I mean, they do a little bit, but not as much. And it kind of starts focusing more on like him being in school for a couple episodes. I think it comes around back at the end. I think it ends pretty strong. But there is like a bit where it kind of shifted focus for a while. And I was like, especially like the one where she comes to visit him at the school and like, it does like a little, like he kind of starts getting jealous because people start like shitting on him, and I was like, oh, I'm not really into this. I don't need this in my cute show that makes me want to shoot myself in the goddamn face.
What a cute show! What it makes you want to blow your brains out.
It's like cute aggression. It makes me just want to eat the barrel of a shotgun.
Yeah, it's a cute anime. If you want like just a cute, nice romance to fill the void in between seasons of like Nagatoro or whatever the hell, I'd recommend checking it out because it's very nice.
It's a cute way of like exploring these characters because they get to kind of explore these relationship dynamics and like kind of find themselves because they are in like a pivotal moment of like growing up. They're in high school and experiencing their first relationship, and they're able to do it through like acting, which is something they're kind of both passionate about. The boy less so acting as much as kind of being a stagehand and seeing other people act, but she's like really into, performing these characters and stuff. So I really liked the premise of it. It's a very cute premise. I feel like this feels more like a show, like a modern kind of romance, more so than like an Alya, where this kind of feels more like the get no bitches, stack no paper. Like it fits in with the Nagatoro and
Call Me or whatever
Uzumaki or whatever.
There's the one. No, God, not Uzumaki. What the fuck are you talking about? Jesus Christ.
Uzaki.
Yeah,
it fits into that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, go watch it if you. It sounds interesting. It's not like my favorite. It ended up being pretty close to being in my top 5 of the season, but it didn't quite make it, unfortunately.
Next up we have a show that I had expectations that were on the fucking floor, and that may be why I actually ended up enjoying this so much, because it wasn't bad, it wasn't horrible. It didn't make me want to put a gun in my mouth in a bad way. Isekai Suicide Squad.
Yeah, this was the one I thought was just going to be garbage.
I was expecting the worst. I was expecting just cringe and hate it. Like I do a lot of superhero stuff.
It wasn't great, but I guess because our expectations were so low, it was fine.
Yeah, it's not blowing my top off quality wise. Although I will say, this is the thing that I think I was impressed the most by with the show, is that there is some really strong animation sequence in this show. I was not expecting it to be like the kind of like Sakuga Fest like showcase of like animation that it ended up being. And there's some really, really strong work in this that even if you're just like watching it for the cuts, I think it's fairly well justified at like, what is it, like 10 episodes?
I don't know. I feel like people said the opposite when we finished it in the group watch, where they were like, "Oh, I was hoping this had more action and it would look better or whatever." I'm kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Like it definitely had like good shots. I don't necessarily think there were.
It's not like a consistent thing. It's more like it suddenly is like, holy fuck,
Yeah.
That being said, it is too damn long. This could have just been like a 2-hour movie, really. Obviously, I don't think it really would have been like successful though as that. You know, a 10-episode TV series is gonna do a lot better overall, I'd say, than like just a movie that just comes out and then no one's gonna talk about it. But it is not.
Let's be real though.
What?
You're watching this for Harley Quinn.
Oh, she is so cute in this. I'm generally not a fan of her punk design, but I really like how she looks in this.
Yeah, this is I guess because it's like the anime design. More so than just like her just looking like fucking Margot
Robbie or
Margot Robbie?
Yeah, whatever the hell.
Margot Robbie.
I do like all the characters in this, to be honest. Well, except for the Joker, but I do like all the characters for the most part.
I ended up liking them more than I thought I would.
Yeah, like Clayface, starts off and he's like making like these references to Isekai and stuff, and it's like, oh no.
But then it just turns out he's just like in the movies and shit.
Yeah,
yeah. Like a database animal.
Which is it's like, okay, that's in character with Clayface. That makes sense. He's not like just like I'm the guy that's in the know or anything like that. Which is interestingly, and I guess I was expecting it to be more like self-aware tropey as well. Which like, oh, look at all these like wacky isekai tropes. Whoops, things like that.
Well, this is written by the guy who wrote ReZero, so it makes sense that he would be able to handle it.
I think
where it's just not cringe.
Yeah, he's gonna come at it from the perspective of like, okay, well, what actually? Because I think he was probably on some level aware that you can't just like do stuff that's just like parody, silly bullshit or whatever. You need to actually like provide some sort of like grounded story and ideas. And I think he does that pretty well for the most part. Again, it's not like the most mind-blowing thing, and there are problems, but it's not horribly painful to watch, which is what I was expecting based on the name Isekai Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
God. But it's not a complete and horrible dumpster fire, and in my book, that means it's pretty good.
it kind of reminds me of like your dad's action movie, right? In the sense of like they go watch this fucking action movie in theaters. They're like, I want to watch Jason Statham shoot a gun and kill some bad guys, and it's very by the numbers, but it's not incompetent.
Yeah,
where like it's not distracting because like they do like things with like there's like a princess character that's basically just like an otherworld Harley Quinn. Like they look exactly the same. And like she gets inspired by Harley Quinn, kind of grows as a person. They do a lot of stuff that's just very obvious. Like you're not going to watch this and be like, "Oh, well, I didn't see that coming."
It's like it's again very by the numbers, but it's not excruciating like Joss Whedon self-aware irony bullshit that I hate.
Not overly.
Not
it
overly.
does have some of that.
There's a couple moments, but they're done so sparingly that I think it works perfectly fine.
I think it worked too. Like it's not just seeped in it where you're like, oh my god, just shut up.
Shut the fuck up. You fucking Twitter brain rotted Reddit moron.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
It's all right. I quite liked it.
It was okay.
Speaking of okay, 2.5D Sensation, which is still ongoing, but I guess we'll just talk about what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I don't think my opinion will change a whole lot. No, honestly. I
am enjoying this more past the first few episodes, if I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
Like when it started off, I was rolling my eyes quite a bit. Like these just like. And I'm not one to complain about like ecchi and stuff, but if you're going to have like these sorts of like, oh, guy falls on girl situations, there's a way to do them where I think you can execute it very well. And the show doesn't really do it very well. Thankfully, that's only in the first couple episodes, and they move on to more interesting things like the cosplaying community and things like that. So it's playing more into its strengths now, even though it's not necessarily like super strong. It's better than when it started.
Right. Yeah, I think the most unfortunate part of 2.5D is My Dress Up Darling exists, I think.
Yeah. And then, to be fair, they're not the same series. They are doing different things.
They're not the same.
But
they do have a lot of overlap.
There is enough overlap that watching it, I do just end up comparing them. And it's not really a favorable comparison, I'd say. I do like Dress Up Darling a fair bit more. But I like this. I like the main girl Ririsa in it quite a bit. She's pretty fun. The main guy has also gotten better, I'd say, and I have just enjoyed watching. And I think the show would overall benefit from them having like just a generally platonic dynamic, I'd say, because for context, the main character basically is just like, I am only interested in 2D women. And he's very clear. It's very clearly like not. It's very clearly a cope.
Very clearly a cope, yeah.
We're just kind of like, but they kind of like move on enough from that.
It kind of rubbed me the wrong way how fast like they had him turn around
on that.
It's just like, oh yeah, everyone that just doesn't show any interest in women just fucking as soon as some
just
girl like showed him attention,
in his
immediately
lap,
turn around
left and right, and it's like, what are we doing? All right, fine.
What are we doing?
Again, I would say that like the ecchi elements of something like Dress Up Darling, I think, are also like considerably stronger than this as well.
Well, because like I don't know, but Marin was like very like confident and very very sure of herself. So like she would put him in these situations just because she didn't really like consider him as like a threat or something.
Yeah,
so it's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And then like this is just like she's just oblivious
here as well, but it's not.
She's just
strongly.
like oblivious.
Yeah,
like it's not like she just doesn't think he's like, oh, he's not a threat. It's just she just.
I think I made the joke where if this was like something that came out in like if this was an American movie that came out in the early 2000s, the joke would just be that Ririsa thinks the main character is gay. It's like, oh, you're gay, so it's okay if I can get naked. Like that's sort of like weird homophobic stuff.
The non-teen movie approach.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's not like that, even though, again, the ecchi stuff, not really the strong suit. What I really like about this show, where I think it really shines, is just showing the cosplaying scene and the way other cosplayers like interact. Sometimes it's not all that good. Sometimes they treat it like a fucking sports manga, which is kind of strange.
Yeah. No, I like when it's...
I like the camaraderie.
Them just going these... Yeah, when they just go to like the change and they're like talking and they're kind of like, comparing notes or whatever.
Yeah, like that's the stuff that I think is like by far and away the best part of the show.
For sure. Yeah. But then like they go and like take pictures. Like
there's like rivalries and stuff. And it's like, this is weird.
Well, like I think there's like 2 whole episodes where her and apparently a character named 753 Heart.
There's a professional.
I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced
girl.
Something. Yeah, so that's another like highly professional cosplayer.
Yeah.
They're like posing and they're like, it's like the fucking Vogue cover or whatever. They're like doing these internal monologues like, I used to hate cosplay, but then I started loving cosplay. You're like, whatever the fuck. Yeah, that's not exactly what they're saying, but
right. But it's like, this is weird.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, you could do that well. There's definitely a scenario where you can kind of condense
we need
this and
like
make it work.
A really exaggerated. We need like the Blue Lock of cosplay, where it's just incredibly heightened and absurd.
I mean, if you want to do that, then do it throughout. I guess, like
with
just
a little
make
bit
it
more
like over the
like
top.
consistency.
This is just like 2 episodes, but you're spending 2 episodes on it, and it's just like, come on, I don't care. Like,
I don't care.
Like, I think the things that bother me the most is like how they kind of treat the protagonist's like fandom of it. Cause like, I get people will give some pushback, I guess, where he's like, oh, he does like still kind of look like he'll show him like put a book down or something. Mm-hmm. But like, basically, as soon as this character has shown up, like he's shifted his entire like way he like operates in this hobby to conform around her.
Yeah.
Like it's now just all about her cosplaying. And it's like, you can still do that. Just have him like read manga or something while she's doing something else.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why you had to like have him just shift his entire life to like supporting her hobby instead. Like, cause when he literally, that's not what he was into. He wasn't into cosplay really.
Yeah.
So it's just like, that's why I like, I'm gonna compare it to fucking My Dress Up Darling again, but that's why I like My Dress Up Darling. Cause like, he's not Gojo is not an otaku in My Dress Up Darling. Like he is an otaku in a sense of he's really into
dolls.
Dolls.
And
yeah, but he's not like an anime otaku,
no,
right?
Yeah.
So you're not really having to navigate that where he's like shifting his life, and he still maintains his hobby of like dolls and stuff.
Yeah, they synergize really well.
Yeah, the cosplay hobby that he is helping Marin with is literally just helping him in his other hobby, because he's able to like kind of apply his mentality to what she's doing. And they don't ever really utilize that in this. Like, she already kind of just like, oh, I really want to express like her ecchi side or whatever in this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not really adding anything in that regard. Like, Gojo would apply the way because he's not an anime otaku. So like when he went and read this visual novel to help Marin make this like cosplay, he's sitting there like, oh, well, the fabric should be of this material because this is more indicative of the status that she is in the series or whatever. That's the kind of thinking that Gojo has that Marin doesn't have, because Marin's approaching it from more of like a character and otaku perspective, as like just enjoying the series.
Yeah.
Whereas Gojo's approaching it from like a cosplay, very kind of engineer-minded kind of thing, right? You're not getting that in 2.5D. Like, you're not getting a synergizing of, you know, I'm interested in this. Like, it's not even like he's interested in ecchi, so he's able to like think of different poses or something.
You get a little bit of that because they both really like the same character, but that's not this like
they're synergizing in a way, like in the way that they're both liking the same character, but there's not, their appreciation of that character is not from different perspectives necessarily.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting like, oh, you should do it this way because this was more reflective of how I see the character, and her kind of finding a middle ground with that or anything. It's just
they're very, very like they have it's like the one Yoda meme where it's like, God, I wish I could meet her. Yes, they're very cute and likes all the things that I like.
It's literally that. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know. It's fine.
I
will shit on
it, but yeah, there are problems, but it's not horrible.
Not terrible.
Yeah,
I'm hoping maybe it'll turn. I doubt it, but I'm hoping it'll turn a corner, and maybe like, you know, maybe it's not going to turn my anime of the year, but maybe it'll at least be able to be better for me, right? I guess.
Yeah.
But most people are probably going to enjoy it just fine.
Yeah. I don't know. It's thumb up ish. I don't know. Now
I'm waving my hand side to side. Just
yeah. Tell me about Atri, because I didn't watch that one.
Oh yeah, you didn't watch Atri.
No.
So Atri is a post-apocalyptic show where the oceans have flooded. Global warming has come in full force. Japan is flooded. It almost seems like they're kind of in like a sunset kind of age a bit. That kind of changes later on. But it seems like they're kind of like in almost like a Yokohama shopping log kind of thing. Where it's like, yeah, things are fucked. Oh well. And he comes across this robot in his old house, and hijinks ensue. I was okay on it at first, and then it kind of was like, I'm not really. It's whatever. I don't know. And then like, I don't know, like episode 6 to 8 kind of range, I started really coming around on it, because it kind of goes the route that you would expect at first, where it's like, oh, you know, he's falling in love with the robots, doing the kind of key visual novel thing, right? It's not a key visual novel, but they kind of reminiscent of that, where it's like, okay, I know what's going on, you know. And then it starts kind of exploring free will, and like it makes like an interesting supplementary piece to My Wife Has No Emotion, which also aired this season, which we'll get to. Because he basically starts like questioning. He initially thinks like, oh, but this robot is special and it has feelings, and you know, our relationship is special in that way. And then he like finds reason to doubt that, and then he starts questioning his entire relationship and worldview of this character. until he kind of just has like a moment where he's like, why am I doing what the fuck's wrong with me? So it's kind of, it explores it in an interesting way that I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting behind this now. And ultimately it kind of ends up being more about kind of the global warming, kind of technology supplementing and helping nature. And Atri kind of is, the character Atri is kind of reflective of that as well, because she is kind of rehabilitating the protagonist in a similar sort of way. So you got an interesting kind of like parallel and through line with that. But it's not gonna blow your socks off. If you like something like Plastic Memories, it's sort of similar-ish to that. That's kind of the thing I can think of that's probably the best like analog. I feel like most people probably don't know what Plastic Memories is anymore. Because that was popular, what, 2015? So it's been a while. But yeah, Atri was, I was surprised by it. Initially kind of like, I was like, okay, and then I kind of soured on it, and then it came back around. So I would say if it sounds interesting to you, it's worth checking out. If it doesn't interest you that much, it's not really worth going out of your way for.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. What are we talking about? Okay, VTuber. This was a silly ass fucking anime.
I did not expect to like this one as much, because I don't like VTubers.
No, you are not a VTuber. I mean, I like VTuber clips. I don't really watch any VTubers, but if I see Shondo on my timeline, I'll click like. I
remember when VTubers were becoming a thing, and I was like, I don't get it. No, I don't. This is an affront to
old man Mumi.
Old man yells at cloud.
But I don't know.
I don't like change.
I think this show does a good job at conveying the compromised energy that VTubers have. Where it's like, oh, they're alcoholics, or they have baby fetishes, or stuff like that.
Yeah, it does. It did feel very on the pulse. Like, yeah. I say I'm not into VTubers. I do. Obviously, being in the anime community, you do get some overlap where you are exposed to VTuber shit.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's cutting edge. It doesn't feel like, oh my god, this literally just could be what I was watching last night on Shondo's stream or whatever.
Right.
But it does feel like it knows what it's doing. It is aware, and it does feel like a love letter to VTubers in the sense of, like, I think literally at the end they have like a sequence where they just show actual VTubers, and it's kind of like a nod and like a homage to all these different VTubers that have been popular throughout the years or whatever.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like they knew what they were doing.
If you like VTubers, I would, just recommend it. The weird thing about the show is that they're always VTubers. Even when you see them in like a real life setting, they're still like their VTuber designs, which
I
think is kind of interesting.
I don't like that. It's interesting. I don't like it. Because it has like this weird reinforcement of like, if you're not a VTuber, you're not human.
Oh yeah, because everyone else who's not a VTuber is like not really portrayed.
They're literally showed as like a gray robot thing. Mm-hmm. Like they're just nondescript and they're all the same, right? Like it's just like no one cares.
No one
you're
cares.
Not human.
I'm
not going to recognize you as a human.
Dude, it's just like what was the one show we watched last season that was like Korean and about YouTube?
Viral Hit?
Dude, it's just like Viral Hit. All right, your sub count is your follower count is your power level. All right.
True.
Except which then means that Iron Mouse can now beat Kai Cenat.
That would be an interesting. That would be an celebrity boxing match.
So like a VTuber is beating the shit out of a real person.
You see, I feel like most people are immediately thinking like, oh no, Iron Mouse is got health issues. That would just be. I'm just thinking like she would just bring out a fucking mech and it would just
that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's like a giant robot that just looks like the Iron Mouse character.
The Iron Mouse,
Mecha Mouse,
like the Iron Giant or something.
Guy Sanat is like dressed like Goku or something. We need to make this happen. All right.
This is the worst fucking celebrity boxing match I've ever
This sounds like a
pitched.
stream Germa would put together. This is what we're going to be doing for the Germa Rumble.
I don't know. I don't like VTubers, so even like if you don't like VTubers,
yeah,
it was pretty entertaining. I chose to stick around.
Yeah, silly ass absurd comedy. Yeah, good show.
It is. It is very. There's not a plot.
No.
It is very VTuber-esque in that way, where they just kind of just do.
It's
whatever.
just things happening. Oh, here's what we're doing this episode. We're going to be playing Prop Hunt or whatever.
Yeah, it does have a climax.
Yeah,
so
it does. It does.
Oh, they did play like werewolves.
Yeah.
Or like some derivative,
something like that.
Basically, just like the stand-in for
Among Us.
Among Us.
Among Us or whatever. A whole episode dedicated to that. Very fun show. A lot of.
They did play Aoi Oni.
That is true. They did just have that. There's a lot of interesting stuff visually in this, between the incorporation of like the actual like VTuber rig stuff when you'd see in like OBS and like all this other stuff. Really interesting.
Yeah, it was all right.
Check it
out.
Let's talk about another content creation show. Mayonaka Punch.
Mayonnaise Punch.
Mayonnaise Punch is a show about a girl who had a popular YouTube channel, and then she gets kicked off of it.
Why are you talking like this?
I don't know what you're talking about. This is how I'm going to summarize the show. Anyway, she ends up like trying to kill herself in like this abandoned hospital, but ends up getting saved by a vampire, and they start a YouTube channel, and they need to get. You're going to start making YouTube content with like vampire stuff. And that's Mayonaka Punch.
Wow, that was amazing.
That was awful. What did you think of Mayonaka Punch, Mumi?
This might have been a surprise of the season, in the sense I probably had the lowest expectations for it. Like I just assumed
it ends up
we would
like
probably not watch this. I was like, this is probably just gonna be bad.
It ends up delivering so well by the end.
It was legitimately good.
Yeah, this show, I think it was Hayden's favorite show of the season. I know Hayden really, really liked it.
I think what, yeah.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly emotionally resonant. If you were someone who watched Vlad Love and was horribly disappointed by it, I would definitely recommend this instead. If you want girl meets vampire story,
Vlad Love.
Yes. And it does have like a lot of like interesting like YouTuber stuff as well in it. Specifically like more like Japanese like YouTuber stuff where it's like a lot of like weird challenges, like we're gonna try and survive on a stranded island for 40 days and 40 nights or something like that.
I don't know if that's necessarily like specifically a YouTuber. It's just more of specifically like a variety YouTube. Like they're not like video essayists.
Yeah,
they're just
not
like
a vampire
trying to
videos.
be Mr. Beast as like a comedy troupe or something.
Yeah. And they even put together like their own like website, and there's like a lot of like extracurricular material for the show as well, where you can see like what would be the actual kind of in-universe videos that they would be making.
I feel like people don't talk about like the media mix in that way a lot.
No.
In the sense of like stuff that's going on as the show is airing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's something that people might touch on as like a factoid. Like, oh, did you know that?
There were audio dramas going on at the same time Odd Taxi was airing.
Yeah, you could submit something in the mail. It's like, okay, cool. But like, it's interesting that like this has like uploads to their YouTube channel. That's like literally just the YouTube channel videos that they were making.
And yeah, it just ends up delivering just a really, really solid story, I'd say. I love the way like because there's a fairly large cast of vampires, and they all, well, I don't know if all, but for the most part, they all get like their own episodes, like giving like their backstories and stuff. And some of them are really, really hard. Like some of them are really fucking sad.
I think the highlight was Fu's episode, where she's like trying to she's talking about like how she had a dream of singing or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That was like a really good episode.
Yeah. I think that was like the one where I was like, holy shit.
I think that was the episode that we kind of were like, wow, this is so much better than we were expecting.
They are like, I was already liking the show a fair amount, but then it was like, holy shit, they really are cooking.
They were really cooking.
And then like the final arc of the show over like the last 2-3 episodes delivers really, really strong, and a punchline that I will not spoil, but it was the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Truly a Mayonaka Punch.
It definitely, line. Yeah. Highly, highly recommend Mayonaka Punch. It gets 2 thumbs up from me. Definitely.
It's an anime original too. So.
It is, yeah. So if you're looking for
one of the rare.
If you're someone who complains about, they don't make good anime originals anymore. 1, shut the fuck up. You're really annoying. 2, watch Mayonaka Punch.
Give it a go.
Give it a go. It's really good.
It was PA Works did 2 original anime last season. It was that one, and then that Nanare Hana Nare, the cheerleading one.
I didn't watch that one.
We watched episode 1. It was okay.
I don't remember it. For context, I barely, for the shows that we did not continue and dropped after episode 1, I barely remember any of them or what happened.
Yeah, before we started recording, we were talking about it. I was like, "Did we talk about the ones we dropped?" And I'm like, "He's like, I don't even remember."
You can describe them to me, and I will have vague recollections of them.
So that's why we just decided to talk about the ones we kept watching that were okay.
Which this next one I think is one that only you watched again.
You didn't watch the Quality Assurance in Another World Isekai?
I watched the first couple episodes. I thought it was I really like the concept of it. It's kind of hard to talk about without spoiling that first episode, though.
I mean, I don't know if this is a minor spoiler, I guess, because it's a large component of the show. I mean,
right.
I guess you're going to get spoiled on the twist of the first episode.
Yeah, so I guess if you want to go in, I recommend it. I assume you recommend it, Mumi?
Yeah, I mean, well, I recommend it in the sense of like it's a fine show.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like at the point of your anime watching where you're like, do I watch Quality Assurance or Cowboy Bebop? Probably don't want to watch Quality Assurance.
but if you are all interested, watch the first episode. And if it seems like, if based on that first episode, then it seems like something up your alley, then yeah, definitely continue.
For everyone else, we're going to talk about it.
We're going to spoil it. It's spoil it now.
It's a minor spoiler. I don't even think it's like that important to like. It's like
spoiling
on.
Like the first episode of like School Live.
Well, yeah, like what it is going into it, and then they use it as like a shock thing, and you're like, okay.
So for context, the main character, has basically been trapped in like this VR MMO, and he is bug testing.
Yeah, it's not an isekai. It's not a fantasy story. It's just
trapped in a
Sword
Art
Online.
Yeah. But he's bug testing.
Beta tester.
Which is really like, it's something I never would have thought of, where it's like, yeah, how the fuck would you bug test Sword Art Online? God, that sounds like a nightmare.
And kind of seems like it.
Yeah, testing collision, you just gotta ram your face up against a wall. But it was funny watching that first episode. It was funny watching that first episode because I was like, this feels like he has like a tablet and stuff, and this like sound and some of the design stuff. Why does this feel like Breath of the Wild? And it's like, oh,
that all makes sense now. It probably is inspired by Breath of the Wild in some capacity because they do a lot of like exploits and glitches in this.
Yeah,
that are very reminiscent of like the kind of collision exploits that you could do in like a Breath of the Wild.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm going to hit this item like 70 times and it's going to, when I open it, the force of 70 hits will throw me through the wall or something. well, I want to grab this item, and if I run it into this thing the right angle, the collision will fail, and I'll be able to walk through this wall and like shit like that. It is very so the premise of this is like these characters in this world have basically they feel like they've been abandoned here because apparently they've been here in the world time. They've been here for a year. We don't really know at the end of this season, I should say, we don't really know what's going on still yet. But I would probably venture to guess it's a thing where it's like they've only been in for like X amount of time, but it feels like so much longer or something. But they're all kind of these beta testers. They're like, oh, we're just going to do, you have these groups that have like kind of just stopped beta testing because they're like, oh, we've just been abandoned by this company. We've been here for like over a year and no one's even tried to pull us out or check up on us or whatever. And so you get all these people that are kind of just, it makes for a very interesting moral dynamic, right? Because like you're coming at it from the perspective of the main character, Haga, who's kind of approaching it as like a beta tester, trying to engage in the world as if it is a real world in the sense of like, he's trying to make it better for someone that wants to experience it in that way.
Yeah.
So while he doesn't necessarily think these are all real people, he is approaching it in that same kind of mindset, and he takes his job very seriously. And so he comes across these other beta test, like the bug testers or whatever, that have stopped doing their job essentially, and are like, oh, I'm just gonna use these NPCs as human darts for fun, and like the way it's presented, like, cause like in the world, you're like, oh my god, these fucking people are monsters. But then you think about it and you're like, it's just the same as like playing GTA and like just getting your wanted level up to 5 and just starting a shootout with the police. It's the same kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's immoral, like it's fucking up, but they're also, it's a game, right? Like, it's not really that fucked up. It makes for a very interesting dilemma where you're like, I can see why you would just stop doing your job because you feel like they abandoned you and you're just going to fuck around.
Right.
But at the same time, it does kind of seem fucked up. But yeah, I liked how they do handle like the kind of exploits and stuff like that. They don't utilize it as much as I would hope. But I would like to see more of, they do it a little bit. I would like to see more of like him utilizing exploits that haven't been patched out yet that he knows of, and utilizing that to like beat these characters that are using the debug stones that they have in the show that basically just give them god mode or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Which he does do on a couple of occasions, but he
does so sparingly because he's he's sticking to his job.
Sticking to the job of running his face along a wall.
Yes.
To make sure the collision doesn't fuck up. But yeah, the characters that are like exploiting the world are some of my favorite parts. Like there's this image that just goes super fucking hard where this dude wearing this like medieval helmet is just like in a towel is just sitting on these naked women.
Oh god, yeah. It's like what the fuck?
He just goes so hard. Like, okay. And there's like a moment where they like come across this boss and like the people have like glitched the boss and like put these exploits in the game of like he just is holding these dildos. He just comes out speaking in English. He's like, I'm gonna fuck you to death. They're just like, what the fuck?
Man, what a wacky show. I wish I would have continued watching.
Yeah, I don't know why you stopped.
I'm
fucking great.
I'm bad at my job. Sorry.
Well, we can't all be employee of the month over here, I guess. But yeah, I would, if you're into like, I guess if you've ever wanted to see like speed runners go through like a Sword Art Online or something. This is probably as close as you'll get to something like that. Very interesting, very fun. Also not a full adaptation. It just kind of ends on a maybe we'll see you next time. And he was like, okay, they're still in the middle of something. Cool.
I guess we'll see.
So, fun show, though. Would recommend.
Hopefully it gets continued. Speaking of something I hope does not get continued, even though I only watched like 3 episodes, is Plus-Sized Elf.
Oh yeah, plus-size elf. There's nothing to summarize plus-size elf.
No.
Elf is fat off of fucking French fries.
Yeah, he eats a thing of French fries. He like eats a single thing of French fries and gets fat. That's the joke. Yeah. It's just kind of gross and kind of fat phobic and not really like not really that sexy either. Like
no,
I'm not going to be like, oh, you can't make you fat bitches sexy. In my opinion, the more women the better. But this is like presented in such like a sterile way where it's just like, oh, her tits are out. And
it's almost cynical sometimes.
I feel nothing.
Like, it's just like, well, it's as I've said, it's devoid of eroticism.
Yeah, which I feel like gets kind of counter the entire conceit of this, where it's like this should be really horny and I don't know, it feels clinical and I don't feel happy watching. I feel unhappy. I feel the opposite of positivity. Yeah.
Like, just read the manga.
Yeah, I think the manga probably delivers more on that better. Although it is still kind of just like gross watching and being like, oh yeah, you eat one thing of fast food, you become a disgusting fat pig. It's like, oh, that's a I don't know if I really like that. And just focus on the sexy fat elves, please. That's what I'm here for. I don't need any moralization about fast food.
It's the most notable part of the show for me was the opening and how terrible the dance was in the opening.
Oh,
it is probably the worst single piece of the worst single piece of animation I have seen in some time.
Yeah, it's the worst thing of the
absolutely
season.
Terrible, and it ends off with admittedly a very funny visual where he helps her up and she's holding French fries,
which again is just kind of weirdly like fat phobic, and it's like, am I supposed to be laughing that they're fat, or am I supposed to be turned on? Because it's kind of hard to do both, and you're not really doing either.
It's not good.
It's not good.
It's the opposite.
It's the worst thing I've seen this season. It's one of the worst things I've seen all year. Probably beat only by Viral Hit. God.
It says fast food's bad for you, and it's the anime equivalent of fast food.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only watched it because it was 12-minute episodes.
Yep. Yeah. At least it's
the only saving grace.
It is merciful. It is short.
Not much to say about it, though.
No. Moving on.
Some will say. Moving on to Dungeon People.
I watched the first episode. I thought the show was really cute.
You didn't watch more of it?
I wish I did. Should have.
Where the fuck were you with all these? What the fuck?
So a lot of these we just watched on like Friday, and I just ended up falling really far behind on like Friday anime. So, what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Tell me about it.
Dungeon People is the sequel to Dungeon Meshi.
Oh, really? Wow,
they killed the cast of Dungeon Meshi. And,
wow.
The ceremonies.
Damn, that show gets really dark. Wow.
No, it's just it's kind of the same premise where they just go into a dungeon. It's kind of incorporated into like their economy or whatever.
Yeah.
She ends up she basically is like the one that's gone the furthest in this dungeon. She ends up like breaking a wall during a boss fight, and
she finds a glitch in the Matrix and got promoted to like an agent.
Yeah, basically. Pretty cute. It kind of explores not really as well as like Dungeon Meshi as far as like world building or whatever. But it kind of explores like this idea of like building a dungeon.
Yeah.
The aesthetics, kind of the balance of it.
Yeah, building a dungeon from the perspective of the person running the dungeon.
Right.
Where it's not necessarily like a living ecosystem like in Dungeon Meshi, but instead it needs to pose a reasonable challenge to people getting into the dungeon.
I feel like this one's kind of a hard sell for me because it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing about it that particularly stands out how I typically consume stuff. It's just kind of like a cute show.
Yeah.
It's just a girl that is like an assassin kind of class character who's kind of overpowered as shit with a mage, bright, happy character that's overpowered as shit, and then they do dungeon things.
You want a cute girl show? Here you go.
This is your cute girl show. Cute girls doing dungeon things.
Doing dungeon things. So yeah.
Not much to say about though.
Next we have what is that? The second season of Sengoku Youko.
Sengoku Youko. You didn't watch the first season.
I watched the first season.
Definitely didn't watch
this is
the
the same
second
author
season.
as Biscuit Hammer, right?
Yeah, Biscuit Hammer, Spirit Circle. Fuck, what is their fucking name? I'm terrible.
Yeah, Kanata.
Holy fuck, not you too! It's fucking Satoshi Mizukami! I fucking hate this job!
But yeah, it's one of his works. Which is a good thing.
Is it good? How good is it?
As a disparaging thing. So this adaptation's actually much better than the Lucifer the Biscuit Hammer adaptation. I really wish that Lucifer the Biscuit Hammer had an adaptation of this level. I mean, it's not like Elusive Samurai, which we'll talk about later, but it is good. It is a good adaptation, and it's got the same. I mean, they're very good at having like this kind of underlying maturity to the writing, where they're on a surface level, what they're writing is very juvenile in like a chuny sense, but the way they're able to kind of flesh it out and explore it feels much more mature than it kind of leads on, right? I really enjoyed the first season of Sengoku Youko, but it's almost kind of like a self-contained story in itself. I mean, it has an ending cliffhanger. I guess you kind of compare it to like a Naruto, right? Where you have like the ending of Naruto and then it goes into the Shippuden stuff. Kind of similar situation with this. There's not really, this season is still going.
Okay.
So I can't really point to like some through line or something. I don't really know if there's necessarily anything super deep about it. It's just kind of a fun, if you like shonen-y kind of action shows, this is a nice feel good kind of one for the most part. It's not necessarily like cute or dungeon people. It does still kind of get a little edgy, so it's not like go into this expecting just like nice fun times the entire time. But it's nice. It's fun. It's not necessarily edgy like a Chainsaw Man or not even really quite like a Jujutsu Kaisen. But it's just kind of a better than standard battle shonen-esque kind of show.
What a high wow, what better than standard, guys.
Better than standard. It's not, I mean, it's good. It's pretty good. It's like 6 out of 10.
You did it. You made it better than standard. I think I know what you mean though. I have a reasonable idea of what the show is like now.
Yeah, it's fun.
So one of my favorite shows of the season, Sakuna Hime. I like rice.
Sakuna Hime.
Do you like rice? This is a show for people who like rice.
I think Japan I think rice is pretty important to Japan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're onto something. This is a really nice show. It's got a good mix of just like cute character stuff, nice character dynamics, and some good action. It's a video game adaptation. It's a complete adaptation, so it's just 12 episodes, 13 episodes, and you're done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just a nice, tightly knit story, and I think the testament of how good I think it is that I kind of want to play the game now. It made me want to play the game. And
there were times I was like kind of interested, and then you like look at the gameplay, and I'm like, I don't know about that.
Based on the Steam reviews, you got to be even more into rice to enjoy the game. So
you gotta be really in the rice.
Listen, all right. I'm somewhat of a rice enthusiast. I'm a racist, if you will.
Oh no.
Yeah, I really like this show. I thought I was really endeared by all the characters. There's a weird episode where aliens are involved. I don't fucking know. I really like the character designs, and I could kind of tell right off the bat there was a video game adaptation based on the character designs.
Yeah. I was kind of, I don't want to say like disappointed, because I didn't have super high standards, but I was kind of hoping, given this is a game adaptation, given the aesthetic of it, and the fact that this PA works, I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit better production wise. Not that it's bad by any means.
I can see what you mean. It starts off pretty strong and then just kind of it dips a little bit. Not to the point where it's like even noticeably bad, but you can kind of tell it's like, yeah. Characters look a little bit
I was
weirder.
hoping I was hoping it'd get like a bit more not experimental, but like
extravagant.
You get more like action.
Like
the
big final fight with the evil dragon demon thing is like, I was expecting that to like really like pop off, and it's just like it looks all right.
It's all right. Yeah. It's very funny to me how you can tell like this is a game adaptation sometimes.
Like when they're fighting enemies, it's just like, oh, that's a boss fight. It's a boss fight in the game.
Yeah, or like there'll be something like important coming up, and then like they kind of have like a thing happen or whatever. They like go talk to these characters. Like, yeah, this is just the flavor text.
This is just you're talking to every NPC. They constantly allude to fighting demons, or like say they've been fighting demons, but you don't really see that all that much.
No, in the show, there's like hardly any demons really.
Yeah, there's not a ton of combat. But yeah, they're like, oh, we've been fighting off these demons. I'm like, have you? I guess those have just been like fights that have been happening off screen and just some stuff you do in the game. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I really liked all the characters. I really liked the story. This is just a nice, straightforward, complete package. It's good. I like it.
I thought it was pretty good.
Speaking of thoughts, do you have thoughts on Grendizer U?
Oh yeah, you didn't watch this one either.
No, because it's goddamn Saudi Arabian government propaganda, and I refuse to. Just kidding. I have all the love in the world for the Crown Prince.
Please don't pull our funding.
Please do not pull our funding.
No, this was not good. It was honestly, it was fine, almost. Like there's definitely like a stretch from like 4 to 7. I'm like, this is a chore to watch.
Watching just like the first couple episodes, I was just like, yeah. Well, that guy killed like, your whole family. Holy shit! Wow. Wow. A gallon of PCP. Like, wow.
At first, I was like, "This is like 5s, whatever, like 5 out of 10."
Sure.
And then it became such a chore to watch. But then there's like spoilers for Grendizer U. I feel like most people aren't gonna give a fuck, which you shouldn't. But spoilers anyway. Toward the climax, there's a twist, right? Where they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get married, and then we'll solve the conflict because you'll be married to the leader of this faction or whatever." And it turns out he accidentally marries the sister who was disguised the whole time. It is literally like the fucking like Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2, like 2 meme with the fucking not Amazing Spider-Man 2, with the one with fucking like Jake Gyllenhaal, Mysterio or whatever, where he's like, "You're a good kisser, Peter."
What the fuck are you talking about? Wait, what?
Okay, there's I gotta explain this. There's a Jake Gyllenhaal in the Spider-Man 2 movie where he plays Mysterio. And And in that, I guess like at one point he like disguises himself as Mary Jane.
What?
I'm pulling up the meme.
Okay. I don't know. I guess if you want to watch an anime that has been funded by the Saudi Arabian government, which is really funny because this like came out like a couple weeks after that like soft power anime video that we talked about on stream came out. And I was like watching, just kind of like had that in the back of my mind because the first episode takes place in Saudi Arabia, and I guess Grendizer is pretty popular in the Middle East in general. And I know that the Saudi Arabian government, through some organization, has been getting more into producing anime, specifically with a movie that I would actually recommend because it's pretty neat. I liked it a fair amount, called The Journey, which is about like this. I think this is a story from maybe the Quran. I'm not entirely sure. I've never read that book. I don't know. It's basically a story about like a battle that happened in like early medieval Saudi Arabian history, and it's about how we should have faith in God no matter what. Alhamdulillah. I don't know. Watch The Journey. I don't know, like Max, watch Grendizer U. Mumi?
Yeah, there's this meme here that I was talking about.
Oh.
Like, that literally happens in Grendizer U. It's such a stupid twist. But it was like, it almost made it more entertaining, where I then became more vested because it was so fucking stupid. I was like, okay, I'll hang around for the end. It's fine. Yeah, do not recommend this show.
Okay.
Stay far away from Grendizer U. Check out the ED though. The ED and I guess OP's all right, but the ED has a good song to it. I like that song.
All right. I don't think there's words in the English language to talk about Egumi Legacy, so we're gonna swap over to communicating in.
Go watch it though.
In gobbledygook sounds. So, Mumi, my thoughts on Egumi Legacy are
This is a terrible bit. I hate this right now. I feel like the hate that we were probably cultivating for the people that are listening to this part pales in comparison to the self-hatred I feel for myself right now.
And that's Egumi Legacy.
Yeah, Egumi Legacy is a fucking fever dream.
It's a real shawarma scene.
For context, I'm not going to try to summarize.
I have no
this
idea
show
how you provide context for this.
The context is apparently this literally, okay, the character designs were done by Takuya Eguchi. Who's Takuya Eguchi, you might ask? He's a voice actor. Specifically, he did the voice of like Lloyd Forger in Spy Family.
Oh.
I can only assume what must have happened is they were talking to him at some party or something at some point, and they had him draw pictures on a napkin, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we could use this as an anime," and it was like a joke, and then it happened. Slowly spiraled into an actual production, and he's just like, "What the fuck?
How did this happen? How did we get here? What is this? I don't know. Should you watch it? Probably."
Yeah, well, it's only they're only 10-minute episodes.
Yeah,
there's 12 episodes, so it is a clusterfuck.
But there is a comprehensible story, but it's also nonsense. It feels like, and I described it as a normal like story that has been like ad-libbed into absurdity, where they just take out like all the nouns and verbs but maintain the overall sentence structure and just replace it with like nonsense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
sorta.
I don't know.
There's like a thing of escapism or something in there. Waifus.
I don't know. Watch Grendizer U.
No, Egumi Legacy.
Yeah, you legacy, me, you. No, I hope what we should say is the show is brain rot. Moving on to our top 5 or 6 of the season at long last. It only took over 2 fucking hours.
2 hours of preamble to get to the 5 best shows, or are we 7 best shows?
Yeah,
8 best shows.
There's 6 on here. Oh wait, no, there's more. There's 9.
2,
I scrolled
3,
down.
4,
There's
5,
9.
6, 7. There's 8.
All right. How do we talk about these then? Do we want to talk about from going from the bottom up?
We'll go from the bottom up. We'll go from, what was your number 5 show this year?
My number 5 show of the season was let me actually write these down real quick.
Oh my god, you don't even have a list. You're the
Hold on, just give me 1 minute.
Fucking fake anime databaser. I autistically make a list for everything at all times. So I guess while you're making your list, I can talk about my number 5.
You shut the fuck up so I can focus. Okay, well, Mumi, I'm glad you asked. My number 5 is Elusive Samurai.
Man, that's your number 5? Fuck.
Yeah.
That's pretty low.
Stiff competition out here. It's not even really my number 5. I'd honestly put Spice and Wolf over it, but we already talked about that. So.
Wow. Well, why are you saying?
Well, because Spice and Wolf technically started the season prior, and we just had it on here because we didn't talk about it in the last season because we didn't do one of these last seasons. So instead, I just Elusive Samurai is a really fun show.
It is. I'm pretty optimistic about shonen these days in a way that I haven't been prior to like Jujutsu Kaisen.
Mm-hmm.
You have Elusive Samurai, you have Jujutsu Kaisen, you have Chainsaw Man,
Dan, Kaiju
Don,
Kaiju number 8,
Lieutenant Dan.
All these things, and Elusive Samurai. It's interesting because I think it's a show that is overwhelmingly carried by its audiovisual presentation. And while it's not necessarily the most depthful characterization, every character is very well defined and likable. You know, even if they don't necessarily have a lot to them, what they have going on is entertaining enough to sustain them for, the duration of the show, which is like 12 episodes. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a really, really fun time. I like the main character. I like the villain quite a bit. The main villain is like kind of awesome, and it's like just awesome to watch. And he feels fucking terrifying. So for context, I guess the story is basically a revenge story about Takuji. What the fuck is the main character's name? He's a member of the Hojo clan. He's a Hojo. He's a Ho. He's a
Hojo.
And basically the first episode starts off with his whole family getting massacred brutally. I think like the second episode, we see his brother get just beheaded, and it's like, oh. And then they crack some jokes about it. Anyway, so yeah, he's a member of the Hojo clan, and his whole family is killed in basically what is the takeover by the Ashikaga. And so it's basically just about Tokiyuki Hojo gets taken in by this what is he, like a priest or something? I don't know. He's a guy who can see the future.
Priest, god, time traveler, something
like that. He has some familiarity with our modern world. And they basically team up to, get revenge on the Ashikaga. And while doing so, they end up having to fight just a rotating cast of quirky villains.
Wait, holy shit! Genba was voiced by Aoyuki?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah.
Damn, I wouldn't have fucking guessed that.
Yeah, I didn't really think that either, just because I just wasn't thinking about it at the time. But yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck? I remember we watched the last episode together, and I was like, wait a minute. I get it now. This is the shonen version of like a samurai movie.
Yeah, it took you 12 episodes to put together the fact that this has samurai in it.
Well, no, I got to this, but it felt like, I guess because like the scale is so like scaled
it's
down
just like
at first.
Kill Bill, Mumi.
Just like Kill Bill. It just felt like a standard like shonen-esque kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got to the like where they're running around as generals during like a big fight and stuff and like directing people, I'm like, wait a minute, this is literally just like Romance of the Three Kingdoms or something.
Yeah, well, like they're putting the team together, the team of child soldiers fighting against the Ashikaga, who are I guess are the bad guys. I don't know. Takeuchi Ashikaga seems like a pretty cool. Everyone seems to like him. I don't really understand what the problem is.
Seems like a pretty nice guy.
Pretty nice guy. It's interesting because he is such a likable villain, but everyone around him is just kind of off-put by him. He's just got like a uncomfortable aura to him. And I think at one point we see him interacting with his brother. And I think that was in like, it shows him a little bit as a kid. And I think that's when I realized like, oh, this is kind of like what like Tokiyuki, the main character, is going to become, because Ashikaga was probably a lot like Tokiyuki as a kid. So there's an interesting sort of parallels going on with that as well. Because Tokiyuki's strength, his shonen protagonist ability, is that he's just really good at like hiding and dodging.
Whereas the Ashikaga guy is got really good intuition.
Yeah, and can just pop people's heads off at will.
Yeah, that too.
Generally, genuinely scary villain, really likable cast of characters, surprisingly horny fan art. Really did not see that coming. Holy fuck.
That was, yeah.
Thirsting hard for the main character. It was just funny to see.
When we watched this in Plus Size Elf, I did not expect this to be more of an erotic show than Plus Size Elf.
But you think about it kind of makes sense while watching it. There was that famous tweet where it's like, I'm not gay, but when I see this character, I just can't help but thinking about him shirtless and his ribs being faintly visible, and it makes me cum.
What?
Yo, you don't remember that like unhinged like Japanese tweet that blew the fuck up?
Oh yeah, no, I remember that. Fuck.
Yeah. That not to say that the show itself is really horny at all. It's not.
No, the show is not horny really at all. Like it does have like shots where I'm like, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah,
when they did this.
Where they showed,
but the
Tokiyuki,
show itself
like,
it's not like
blushing in a certain kind of way. It's like, I see what you're doing, but it's not like overtly like sexual at all.
Yeah, no, the show is not like, it's not like a show where they're like sex training fucking children, or like, it's not what it is.
No. Yeah, just really, really strong shonen show. Really gorgeous presentation. It's probably definitely one of the best looking shows of the season.
It probably was the best looking show of the season, honestly.
It's got a banger ED.
It's banger OP too, really.
Banger
honestly.
opening, yeah.
The ED was like the fucking fun, like all the characters get together and have a party, karaoke or whatever. And like literally the bad guys are like DJing.
They're just partying together. And it's like, oh, this is awesome. This is nice. We didn't also say this when we talk about Mayonaka Punch. Mayonaka Punch also probably has like the best ED of the season.
Yeah. I really like Mayonaka Punch's ED. Like how it's just like spoken word for like
rapping.
3/4 of it. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, if you're looking for shonen action, you've probably just already seen Elusive Samurai. So our recommendation is completely pointless. This is one of the more popular shows of the season.
But if you're not like a major shonen fan and
I don't know,
don't watch the latest shonen as it's airing and are not sure if you want to watch this, check it out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good. It's pretty fun.
It's my second favorite show of the season.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's pretty well. I say it with an asterisk because you have a show on there that I didn't include on mine.
Yeah,
as mine. So we'll get to that because it's both at the top of our list.
Mumi, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Oshinoko's second season, which might surprise you.
Yeah,
given I'm not an Oshinoko fan.
I didn't really like season 1. Didn't continue.
I wasn't really super into it either. There was. I watched it. There were moments I liked, like when it's just doing like about the industry stuff, kind of ignoring all the
murder mystery elements. They're reincarnated, all that shit. And there's like love triangle stuff.
When it's not focusing on that, I liked it in the first season.
When it's not focusing on 3 out of the 4 concepts it has.
Yeah. Which is why I like this season, because for 11 or 12 episodes, it is just about this 2.5D stage play they're putting on. And it's talking about like how you adapt it.
Is it a dark exploration of the entertainment industry?
No, it's not really dark, actually. Like as funny as like they kind of say that as like, oh, it's like perfect blue in like the first season, right? This isn't really dark. Like it's just a fine show. I was really caught off guard by it.
How much Kana is in like season 2? That's the only reason I'll watch it.
Quite a lot. She's the main character in the play.
I'll probably check it out then.
It's just them. The first part's like talking about the conflict between like, because the mangaka was the assistant for a mangaka from the first season, where they adapted her manga into a TV drama.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I don't want them to fuck over my series like they fucked over your series. And so she's trying to be very hands-on. And you're having like these conflicts because you have like editors that are trying to like put it into I guess you'd say like PC speech or whatever. Like they're trying to filter, like the editor's like, or the manga's like, yeah, this fucking sucks. It didn't understand this character. And then her editor has to like translate that in a business way where she's like, oh, she thinks you should change how this character does this or this. And then that gets filtered by like 4 people. And it's this giant game of telephone to where it gets to the writer that's adapting it. And it's just is like, oh, she loves it, essentially. Like, it's just fucking, it's showing you the difficulties of trying to navigate like all these different like relationships and like creative minds and stuff like that and adapt something into a stage work when it was like a manga or something. And then it goes into the actual them performing the play, and you're getting like why they kind of act or like what their motivation is and like how they kind of approach acting. And so for like 10 episodes, it's just purely about acting and stuff like that. And I'm having been in theater, I'm interested in these things.
Fucking theater kid.
And it's still got the same level of presentation from the first season, so it's pretty damn good looking. It's got some really good moments. And then when it does kind of get back into the shitty stuff, like it does it in a way that's not hard to swallow. There's like them going on like vacation after to like unwind after doing this play, and you're like, okay, it makes sense. And then they kind of address some things that like you kind of have like when you're in the back of your mind anyway. You're like, okay, that's not great, but it's fine. So this season just worked for me. I don't know if it will continue to. I would hope maybe it will continue to be good and I will like it. This could just be like a one-off, like a like a megalobox and a nomad situation or something. But I mean, I do think that Oshinoko has like good parts to it. It's just there's so many stupid shit in it that like I just don't care about. I'm like, please.
I'll say this: I'm still standoffish based on what you've like described season 2 being about, because I felt like the commentary on like the entertainment industry and stuff like that in season 1 I was already completely disinterested in. So if it's like doing more of that, then it's like, do I really care what this thing has to say? I just want to watch it for like Memcho and Kana.
Well,
that's all I care about.
Kana's pretty prevalent, but there's not a lot of Memcho.
That's deeply unfortunate.
You can go watch that music video they did at the end of the season. There's a good music video with Memcho and Kana in it.
Oh, is it only them?
No, it's got Ruby in it too.
Oh, fucking disgusting. Like gross. Never mind.
Well, it's like their idol group, right? So
yeah, I don't care. I don't want those two.
But yeah, I was surprised by it. It's my number 5 show of the season. I gave it a 7.
That's an extreme surprise, honestly.
Yeah, it really should say quite a bit that I like as much as I did, given how much I didn't really like the first season.
Yeah.
Let that be its own testament.
Now on to my number 4, which is Bokusuma, a show that is, besides you and me, it seems like everyone else fucking hated this.
Yeah. I mean, that was all the articles. Like, I remember we were looking up, like, oh, what do people think about this? Because for anyone that listening and does not know, there are plenty of sites that will write articles about shows that are airing, like the first episode or something, like first impressions or whatever. This show got fucking panned after like 1 or 2 episodes. I was like, what the fuck?
Okay, so for context, the premise of the story is basically a guy gets like a robot that looks like a cute girl that basically just like cooks for him, and they basically get married or whatever. And the whole thing is like, he's in love with this robot girl, and the robot girl is, at the very least emulating love, but also cannot really emote in any capacity as well. And it's just a really cute, nice romance, and I really like the overall like themes of it. But I think a lot of people like watched that first episode and went, this is sad. This is fucked up. He shouldn't be with a real girl. And it's like, what do you mean by real
fantasy?
What do you mean by a real girl? You one of those sex dolls? What? Like Lars and the real girl? But yeah, I don't know. I thought this was like just really endearing. I just like robot stuff like this in general. It reminded me a lot of Time of Eve, and how Time of Eve explores the subject matter in a very sort of just like intimate, character-driven way, instead of like mind-numbing, stupid action like fucking iRobot starring Will Smith. Jesus fucking Christ.
I remember one of the articles was complaining, which on some level I can kind of appreciate where they're coming from, in a sense of like, because they're talking about their relationship being akin to like someone abusing their power with a maid, and basically like, oh, you don't have anywhere else to go, so you should sleep with me or something, and I will increase your pay, or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And from the perspective that robots typically are analogous to like an oppressed class in a lot of like cyberpunk media and stuff like that, I can appreciate. It's like, okay, from that perspective, maybe I can see where you're coming from, but this show's not. It's not, for one, it's not really about that, and it's not trying to present the relationship in that way.
It reminded
essentially
me
this is
quite a bit. I think it's like the opening of Otaku and the Struggle for Imagination, where it's talking about like this app or something along the lines, where it's like a commercial about a guy who has like this like alarm clock, or like it's an app or something with like a cute girl, like an anime girl on it. And it's like, they have like this sort of like relationship going. And, of course, talking the struggle for imagination is all about, having relationships with like fictional characters and things like that. And it reminded me quite a bit of that because it also portrays the relationship as one basically being born out of not really having enough time to go out and find someone. You go to work and then you basically just only have time to come home. You don't even necessarily really want to cook, so you get a robot to do it. And it's essentially a relationship that is completely born out of the social conditions that surround it. Yeah. Which is something I don't think a lot of people are really considering when they're watching the show. So they look at it and just go, this is sad. He should be with a real woman. And it's just like, fuck off.
Well, it was interesting because we did the episode with Patrick Galbraith around the time, like I think we literally published it the week this show aired.
Yeah.
And it was like as soon as we started watching it, we're like, what the fuck? This is like basically doing all the shit that we were just talking about.
We were just talking about, yeah. And I think that's part of like why I liked it so much is that it just really, it doesn't necessarily explore the subject matter in really any depth, at least explicitly. It's very much just focused on being this like sort of cute domestic romance kind of show. And later on,
part of what I really liked about it.
Yeah.
Part of what I really liked about it was like, it was really focused on the performativity side because like so many shows like this, I'm thinking like a Chobits, or even like Atri from this season, like there's functionally no difference in a Personicon or a whoever humanoid or whatever in Atri from a person outside of like they're spectacular or whatever. So like Chi has, like USB ports in her ears, or she can pull a cable out or something. But other than that, and she's like stronger than Hideki or whatever. But outside of that, she still kind of can express emotion in the same way. There's not really a disconnect as like a viewer where you're like, this is just a robot, right?
Right.
Whereas Bokusuma really is leaning into the fact that this is basically an appliance.
Yeah.
Like she's just it's like you're waifuing your rice cooker,
right? That
has a cute girl on.
There is a clear degree of asymmetry involved, and and to a certain extent, again, she does at the very least emulate feelings for the main character as well. She does reciprocate in some fashion, but then it's like a question of like, well, how much is that like just due to like the way that she's programmed, and like how do you want to read into that? In my personal opinion, it's like a meaningless difference. Personally,
well, I appreciate that they kind of. There's one episode where they kind of infringe on it a little bit, but I generally appreciate how it's kind of just left open. Yeah, where it's like, is it real? Is it not?
Yeah,
I don't know. Kind of, it doesn't matter.
And I think the show overall like comes to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's very clear that the main character obviously has these genuine feelings of affection for the robot girl, which is very funny, by the way, that we're talking about all these shows that we really, really like but can't remember any of the characters' names.
No, it's Mina and
I
forget the boy's name, but
it's just kind of like this is fine. This is like just a normal domestic Takuma. It's just a nice like domestic arrangement that they have, and it kind of just presents it without judgment. I don't know. I think it's just a really nice positive experience.
Well, it's interesting how they show corporations kind of.
It is really optimistic with that and how accommodating these corporations are and like benevolent they are.
I don't even necessarily know if it's optimistic in the sense of like, it makes sense that they would do that. And it also makes sense from like a wanting to make money perspective that they would do that, because they're like, oh, you can upgrade your Mina to be more to your,
you can get her a face that moves.
Yeah, like that was a whole plot. Like there was a thing where he thought she was going to because he left up to her.
Yeah.
He thought she was going to like get a face that could like make expressions or whatever. And she ends up not, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have minded if they did.
But I think part of the appeal is that, you know, she shows no emotion, basically, apart from like drooping her eyes.
Well, it kind of really leans into the fact that he genuinely has these emotions toward her for who she is.
Yeah, the way that she exists currently. Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of leaves it up to you where it's like, is that weird? Is it normal? You know, it's up to you.
I think of it as like the guy who married Hatsune Miku on Twitter, where I look at him and go, hell yeah, dude, live your best life, king. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's not really bothering me. It's delivering no harm to me. And this person, you know, seems to be pretty happy and otherwise is functioning as a normal human being. You know, it's not really delivering any clear harm to them or the people around them. So what's the issue? Like, are they just not being a productive member of society because they can't have kids or whatever? Because the same applies to gay people.
Oh.
Want to make that argument? Ooh. Yeah. Which I did see on occasion. I was like, you think about what you're saying for a moment.
Hold on. Take a step
back. Let's not engage in that. Not to do like whataboutism as if it's like, you know, remotely equivalent, but it's also like, that's not how we should define what a good relationship is either.
But I do like how they go about the conflict of, you know, the internal conflict. I wish they'd leaned a bit more into it because I could see, especially from like Takuma's perspective of like, the guilt of like not having a quote unquote normal relationship, right?
Right.
Like there are certain expectations set upon you by society and your parents by society, where you almost kind of feel obligated, like you have a responsibility to provide them with a certain experience. And if you are deviating from that, there's a guilt with that, right? It's
right.
like, oh, me marrying this in the show, it's like he kind of expresses like me marrying Mina. This is a real relationship for me and doesn't matter what they think or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel guilty that I'm not gonna be able to give them a grandchild. Right.
Yeah.
And he kind of has Mamoru, there's like a robot that they get later
they're
on.
A strange adopted child thing.
Yeah, and then they like him. He's cute, but it is different, right?
It's not the same.
It's not. Yeah. I kind of would be interested if they had explored that a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But generally the show is just very optimistic.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe a little overly so, but at the same time, it's kind of just refreshing.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be fucking edgy and.
It reminded
subversive.
Me of like Time of Eve or, you know, stuff like Her, Lars and the Real Girl, stuff like that. If you like those things, I would recommend checking it out because it's just a very nice healing experience. That being said, under no circumstances should you look into what else the mangaka has done to preserve your own sanity. I would advise against it.
Yeah, I like this show quite a bit more than you apparently because this is.
I feel like
my
we liked it about the
show of the season? Asterisk.
Depending on what you count for the season? Question mark.
Yeah. Again, we'll get to our number one because it'll just be the last one. But
right,
this was outside of that. This is my number one, so I guess it's number two. Whatever. Fuck.
Yeah, number two. Then I don't know, Elusive Samurai number 2 or 3, whatever. Yeah.
But my number 4 was Making Heroine with Heisenberg.
Man, you have a really fucking like normie like 3, 4, and 5. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is wrong with you? Elusive Samurai. You have like Elusive Samurai, Otokonoko, Losing Heroines.
That's 2 or 3.
That's the Elusive Samurai, Otokonoko, and Make Heroine are all. Those are 3 anime, Mumi.
Below, My Wife Has No Emotion.
Yes,
which is number 1 above them.
That's
normie? Normie?
That's your one hipster pick. All right, I got only hipster picks except for Elusive Samurai.
I don't know. I think 1 might not be my number 3 might not necessarily be Normie. I don't know how popular it was. But yeah, make Heroine, Losing Heroine, whatever the fuck.
Which I still need to finish. I've been putting it off because I know if I watch it, I'm gonna see lemon and I'm gonna be hot and bothered, and I'm not gonna be able to finish the episode.
Okay.
Kept seeing clips on Twitter, and it kept killing me and hurting me, and I was like, oh god, I don't know if my heart can take this. Fuck, holy shit, god, the tan lines, holy shit, I'm dying. Things are going dark.
Make Heroine is one I feel like I should like more than I do. It's we kind of talked about it as we were watching it. So for anyone that needs context for one of the more popular shows of the season, Too Many Losing Heroines is about it's basically a harem anime about a guy who basically gets a lot of girls that are the B plots of other romance shows in his harem.
They're all the childhood
like
friend.
One of them is not. But yeah, a lot of them are like the childhood friend character that gets rejected in their story, and he picks them up in his harem, essentially. Because he's a nice guy. He's their friend.
Such a nice guy.
It's interesting. I think it's an interesting premise for a harem anime where it's like kind of putting a positive spin in the sense of like, these characters lose out in this love triangle or whatever, and it's like, but it's not the end. You now you get your own new harem that you're a part of. So in a way, it's like, it's not over. At least like concept or whatever. It's not like it necessarily focuses on that aspect. It does kind of focus on like moving on for these characters. Like he does help them kind of get over their crushes or whatever. I don't really think it does it in a way that's super meaningful, if that makes sense. Just in the way of like, as someone that's experienced heartbreak, the thing that they're kind of tackling with this is kind of just the, high school crush heartbreak, where it's like, oh, the guy I had a crush on and never told him and never really had like a romantic connection with is dating somebody else, and now I had to move on. And it's like, that's certainly like a valid thing, but it's not like a deep connection. You know what I mean? Like, it's not getting over like essentially the death of a relationship that you had with somebody and like having to move into a different dynamic with somebody that was in your life, right? You were friends that you had like a one-sided crush on, and now you might not want to talk to them, but you're still in the same dynamic because you were never dating them. Whereas like if you actually had like a relationship and you were transitioning into now just kind of friends or acquaintances or whatever, that is the death of like a large part of your life. But it doesn't have to be that. It's just, I think it didn't necessarily resonate with me as much as it did for some other people, at least that I kind of seen, because it wasn't that as meaningful in that way for me. But like the presentation's really good.
Has a really, really cool ED.
Yeah. So it changes EDs 3 times.
Oh, okay.
And all of them are cool, honestly. I do like the first one the best, though, the one that they use like animation cells.
Yeah.
Even OP is kind of cool, like how they incorporate like the text of like the credits and stuff into the shots that they're kind of moving around in. Yeah, the presentation's cool, like fun, has a nice like visual style to it. I don't think there's ever like a moment it just kind of feels like boring to look at. It's just a solid show. I kind of was being negative about it, but I do really like the show. It's fun time. The characters are likable. I like all 3 of the girls. I mean, obviously the fucking main character is just whatever, but
Lemon is so
Yanami.
fucking hot, dude. Jesus Christ, fucking tan lines, the the tomboy. Oh my fuck, the mummy outfit. If you are a woman
God.
who like between the ages of like 22 and 35 in the DC metro area, and you look like this and are single, please contact me.
Nobody fits that description.
I know, but listen, please.
I'm pretty sure if we had any women listening, they've already clicked off
before
this.
If you are like a somewhat feminine looking guy, hell even. Doesn't matter.
I'll take anything at this point, please.
I'll take anything at this point. Jesus. And like the first scene, she's like introduced with a fucking like locked in. She's like, oh my god. I can't take this, dude. I can't. I'm falling apart.
The Konami teacher is kind of cute. There also is a good Emoto character in this one too. She's not as good as the other Emoto character, but Emoto fans were eating pretty good this year or this season. I liked Komori too. I don't know if the red-haired shy one.
Oh yeah.
They have a pretty fun dynamic.
I need a tomboy girlfriend. You don't understand.
Well, I guess if you like tomboy girls,
alternatively, you're a guy that's in the cross-dressing. Let's talk about Senpai wa Otokonoko, which is my number 3 favorite show of the season.
Yeah, this is the first one for me that's not on my list.
Yeah.
I didn't like this one all that much.
You didn't like this one all that much, but man, this one, I don't know, it's just like, it just touched my heart because I don't know, it really brought something out of me. Maybe I'm trained. No, I just thought it was just such a sweet, like, exploration of this sort of thing. I love the sort of interpersonal dynamic the 3 characters have and this weird sort of love triangle they have going on and all their personal drama. I like Makoto, the main character. Legitimately cannot remember.
I think so.
Makoto
senpai.
Yeah. I like all the stuff with like, the way he's like really into cross-dressing. I feel like that's just like such a nice thing to like just have in a show, and the way that it's like portrayed is so like positive and affirming. It's just really nice to see. There's like, contention. Makoto says pretty clearly in the show, I am a boy. I just like cute things. And Makoto's father, who is just so accommodating and nice, is like, do you want to become a girl? If so, that's fine. I'll support you through it. But Makoto is like very affirms that like, I'm a boy. I just like to, like cute things like women's clothing. Perfectly fine. That's awesome. If Makoto was trans, also perfectly fine. No problem for me.
They kind of say that they're kind of on in the trans space.
That's true. They're kind of like, they say they're somewhere in the middle, kind of.
Yeah, they kind of reach a point where they're like, I don't want to look at myself as either a boy or a girl. Yeah. I just want to be me.
Yeah. Which again, just really nice like mindset to have. I like, just characters, you could have like this sort of like bullying, and there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, everyone around Makoto is very accommodating for who they are, and they have a really nice like just friend group to support them as well. It's just a really, really nice show. I love the character drama that goes on between the main 3, which is probably why Mumi didn't really care for it. I don't know. I like the love triangle aspects. I like the stuff that everyone has going on in their lives, because they all have different sorts of issues that they're dealing with, whether those be like interpersonal with their friend groups, or maybe they have like family troubles, things like that. And I just like the way that it's just overall handled. I think the show is very cute. I like the sort of like chibi art style they'll go into. This is a nice show. I really fell in love with it.
Yeah, this is one of those where it's like, I don't think it's like, it's not terribly like production wise, but it doesn't like stand out in that way. And I guess it's very much like a personal thing, because it's just like, I didn't really like how they handle Ryuji. like with the dynamic of like him and Makoto, where they're like kind of exploring it. He got done dirty. I'm gonna be real. But they explore some interesting.
Yeah, because he has feelings. Well, we should know that with Ryuji.
Yeah, Ryuji.
Yeah, well, we should know he's not going to win. He is the childhood friend.
True.
But I do like that. It's like, am I gay? What does this mean? I mean, I don't think it really fucking matters.
Well, Ryuji's gay. He's very open about that.
Yeah. Well, he does kind of like struggle with. I think at one point he's like, "Would Makoto like me more if I was a girl? Would that make this okay?" And there's this there's
a conflict.
There is this sort of like conflict of gender in it that I do quite like.
Yeah, I do like the exploration of like these sort of, I guess, roles or whatever. Where it's like, should we be these other because I said he's very comfortable with being gay as like himself or whatever, but he's not necessarily comfortable with the scenario that he finds himself in.
Yeah, and like at
he
one
accepts
point,
that he's gay. There's not any kind of like rejection of like, oh, like he's in the closet. He just is like trying to deny it or something.
But it's like, what does Makoto want essentially? How do they make that relationship work? And it's very interesting, I think, how they navigate that. Though Mumi hated that part of the show.
I just hated how they did my boy dirty. He's such a fucking bro.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like the show. I think what really sold me on it was like there's like a scene in episode 3 where they go to like the school dance or whatever. And like I like the climax of that where like they all run out. Makoto gets like this dress and stuff, and it's just nice. It's just nice.
It was a fine show. I would not recommend people not watch it.
Mumi, what's your number 3? Or we talked about that.
My number 3, which I'm not sure if it is normie or not, but is Shoshimin series.
Yeah.
Is that popular? Is that normie?
I have no idea. I don't think it was as popular as Hyoka, so you're clear.
All right. No, it works for me.
All right. How is Hyoka 2?
Hyoka 2, Electric Boogaloo. Somehow more autistic than Hyoka.
If you can believe it. I did watch like the first 2 episodes, and I still need to finish watching it. There's I think episode 2, they just spend the entire time talking about how this guy made hot chocolate.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Do you like Umineko? You'll probably like this.
I haven't read Umineko.
Umineko's a lot of people just like talking about mysteries and like figuring stuff out like puzzle wise.
I've had people ask me like, why do you like Hyoka? It's like trying to explain that it's like this as well, right? This is
if you like Hyoka,
literally
you
just the
also
same
like
thing.
This.
Yeah. It's basically just like mundane Sherlock Holmes, right? You think of Sherlock Holmes stories, like sealed room murder mystery or whatever. This is just like they can't open a door, they open it up, and there's someone in the classroom, and they're like, "How would you get in this classroom if it was locked?" And then they
just hyper fixating on stuff.
Yeah, like Sai said, there's an episode where they're like trying to figure out. They have like 3 glasses of hot chocolate, and there's no like dirty spoon or anything, and they're like, how did you do this without making more of a mess? And they're like going through these different processes of how you could make hot chocolate without making a mess, and
and the answer turns out to be incredibly cursed and compromised. And why the fuck would you do that? What is wrong with you? Why would you do that?
It's great. Like I don't know how to sell this series to you if that does not sound interesting. Visually, it's really good. It is. They make talking in a room visually interesting. Like I remember watching the episode that you were talking about.
Yeah,
that episode went by so quickly for me.
Yeah,
because you're just like,
I will say, it does like tread on a pet peeve of mine, which is I don't really like letterboxing in TV anime. I feel like it's just a weird way to make something seem more cinematic, and it doesn't really like, I don't know, it didn't seem to add all that much in terms of like, why is it letterboxed apart from like doing that thing where it kind of tricks your brain into thinking you're like looking at something that maybe looks a little bit nicer than it actually does framing wise. I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's not really like adhering to the format of television and kind of just selling it down the river. That's a general complaint I have though with just letterboxing in TV anime.
Yeah, I don't really have a pet peeve about letterboxing, so I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're cute. The two main characters are cute together. They're not necessarily romantically involved. I just mean they're cute, bouncing off of each other. They have a cute dynamic. The mysteries. It's not as good as Hyoka. When I say it is basically just Hyoka, I don't think it's quite as good. The characters aren't as interesting. Like, you don't have the Shitanda Oreki thing going on. They don't get as in depth. The production doesn't have the school festival episode or anything.
Yeah.
But it is good. It's like it's like getting more Hyoka, or like a more of a Walmart version of Hyoka. But it's still good. That didn't sell it very well.
No.
I would recommend it though. If it sounds interesting to you, I would recommend it.
Walmart
well
version
done.
of Hyoka is up there with, it's an above standard shonen anime.
I'm not good at selling these sometimes, okay? It's not my fault.
Don't worry, I basically just kept saying things are cute. Speaking of, my number 2 is the Magical Girl and Evil Lieutenant show from this season. Which I think is from the same author as Boku Inu.
Inu X Boku. Okay.
Yeah. Same author as that, and it's just a very cute, wholesome, healing romance between this magical girl and the evil lieutenant character who's supposed to be defeating her, but they end up like falling in love. And it's not like a madly in love sort of thing. It's more so they just kind of like occasionally meet up and eat together at like a park and stuff. There's of course the obligatory cat character for every magical girl. In this, he's just a real bastard, real piece of shit that you end up just kind of liking by the end anyway.
Yeah.
There's another.
He also is like 6 foot tall.
Yeah,
that's human.
He's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
Basically, just a person just smoking and lounging around and making the girl do everything for him. He tries pimping her out at one point. You're like, wow, you're a real piece of shit. There's another magical girl introduced as well who just keeps saying fuck. She's a little fucking gremlin. And her cat character is a buff chicken man. Who is not a horrible piece of shit. He's actually quite nice. And I think there's a undercurrent of like bittersweetness to the show because the mangaka died while it was being serialized. She died like really young, like 28 or something. Way too soon. So obviously this just adapts what it can and will probably never get continued. So there is that sort of like element of like, oh, but for what you do get, I think it's just a really, really, it makes my heart grow, and my left ventricle is now crushing my lungs, and I can no longer breathe because it's such a nice experience. Nice enough to make it to my number 2 slot. It came out of nowhere for me. I went in, and I'm just like, oh, I just fell in love immediately. It's so just cute and warm, and I feel like I'm putting a nice blanket over me.
I think I said that Mayonaka Punch was like the surprise of the season. That might actually be this. They're pretty close, but this is actually probably.
It's also very
like
nice.
I would probably
show.
have less expectations of this being a TV short.
Yeah,
and I ended up liking it even more than Mayonaka Punch.
It is just like, especially if you really like magical girl stuff and are looking for something that's kind of cute, highly recommend it.
I don't necessarily like I wouldn't sell it on like the magical girl side necessarily. I don't think it's like it's not necessarily something that you have to be kind of couched or like vested in magical girl stuff.
That's true. Yeah. I think it's really just a nice healing romance anime.
It basically is just a romance.
Yeah.
Like the magical girl thing is just to explain why they should be enemies, essentially.
Yeah.
But it never really comes up outside of like just offhand jokes as to like why she's like having to go out and do these work her ass off kind of thing.
And I love that sort of dynamic that the main two have where like, you know, the girl is just inherently cute and the guy is like kind of like ends up being like very like protective of her. And anytime she does something cute, he just kind of like melts basically. His like glasses break and stuff. I'm just a sucker for that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was, I want to say it's like my 6th or 7th. Like it's my top 10. It's pretty high up there.
Well, I guess we already did your number 2, which is Elusive Samurai.
I also did my number 1, which is Bokasuma.
So now we got to talk about the real number 1.
Yeah, this is a show that I keep saying like, oh, it's an asterisk because this is my anime of the year so far.
Yeah, it's my number 2 anime of the year behind Look Back.
If you count this as this season, which there's a good reason why that would be up for contention because it technically started halfway through
the spring season. Yeah.
If you haven't figured it out, we're talking about DEDEDEDE Destruction.
Yes, the first adaptation of an Inio Asano manga.
First adaptation. You do get a Perfect Insider. He did work as the character designer on that.
Okay, so but this is like
not the first time you see his designs,
but the first time like a manga of his has been adapted into animation.
Correct,
and it's fucking phenomenal.
I fucking loved it. It's my anime of the year.
It hits so many things that I am interested in with like. I like we talked about it a little bit when Joe was on, but it's like this interesting backdrop of like these cute girls living their like, just normal mundane lives with this backdrop of this like fantastical apocalyptic catastrophe like unfolding kind of just in the background, and then we'll just occasionally intrude in on their lives. Yeah,
it's a Japanese apocalyptic narrative for sure.
Yeah, it's if you watch Shin Godzilla and you like the sort of like how like satirically presented like the government as like incompetent boobs, this has a lot. It's a surprisingly political anime, which I did not expect going in. This anime is very anti-military, very anti-government in terms of like, these institutions are kind of awful at handling catastrophes, and they're basically just like, all right, violence, guys, violence is awesome, isn't it? Let's kill them. Let's kill the aliens.
It does get very indulgent with the genocide of these aliens.
Yeah, and horrific, honestly. It also kind of reminded me of like something like District 9 in that aspect.
Yeah, I'd see it. I feel like I have a not a super unique, but it's not gonna be a common perspective on this, where I read Pun Pun back before it finished. And that Pun Pun, for those who don't know, is my favorite manga of all time. Very very original of me.
Look at this guy. Everyone applaud him. He's such a special fucking snowflake.
So I read Pun Pun. I started reading it, I think, when it was like 2 volumes from ending. So I read the last volume as it came out, and then DEDEDEDE started publishing, like 2015, I think. Like around, it wasn't too long after Pun Pun ended, and I was aware of Asano stuff. I started reading DEDEDEDE, but I was like, I don't really want to read this monthly. I didn't really have anything against it or anything, but I was like, I don't know if I want to read this monthly. I'll just catch up or whatever. So I ended up never actually finishing the manga. And then the anime got announced, and I'm like, oh, I'll just watch the anime. So I'm familiar with Pun Pun and Sano's general style.
And Sano does not really do happy all that much.
No.
And well, I think the conceit of this, from what I understand, was like he originally wanted to make something that is like more uplifting than Pun Pun, which in a lot of ways it is. In a lot of ways, it's horrifically dark and deeply cynical about the nature of man.
It's still cynical. I think it is ultimately more uplifting. I feel like Pun Pun is just a gut punch, kick in the dick, and spits on you when you're on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, well, this is life. This is my life now.
It's like that one meme where it's like the guy in the corner at the party. The guy at the corner of the party is like, they don't know, everything becomes dust. And all the people dancing around him are like, yes, we do. And yet we love. And yet we dance. Like, that's kind of the vibe DEDEDEDE has.
Yeah. Speaking about this adaptation specifically, off the bat, if you haven't seen this and you're interested, do not watch episode 0.
Do not watch episode 0 as your first episode.
I don't have any fucking idea what they were fucking thinking.
Why would they do this? It is not only a horrible introduction to the series, it is confusing as hell watching it with context.
It is essentially episode 17.
It is the second to last episode that has just inexplicably been cut and pasted to the front by making it episode 0. Do not watch it as episode 0. Watch it as like episode 16 out of or 17 out of 18. It's the second to last episode.
Yeah, I was grateful that someone pointed out, like someone had watched it, had read the manga, was like, hey, do not watch episode 0.
Yeah.
Because it adapted, I think, 94, 95.
Some of the last chapters. I have no idea why they did this.
And we're like, what the fuck? Like, what? What?
Just baffling to see. Yeah, when we got to it, it's like, this is a confusing decision. What were they thinking?
Yeah. So yeah, do not start with that.
No, start with episode 1. It's perfectly fine. It's a really good show. It'll hook you immediately.
Yeah. I liked that I'm trying to pull up the name. I liked that the main actress for what is her name? Ontan? Is that what her name was?
Yeah.
Oran.
Well, they call her Ontan, but yeah.
Yeah, they call her Ontan. Was Ano, not Hideaki Anno.
No, but the singer.
The artist, the singer who she actually does the ED for DEDEDEDE.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking banger.
Oh god, yeah, it goes so hard. And then the person who voices Karode is the singer from Yoasobi. So you have 2 big pop stars as voice actresses in this show, and they kill it.
They do. They are killing it.
They have such insane chemistry together. The voice acting is all across the board really great, but those 2, I mean, being the principal characters, it's, they are like the most important to get right, and man, yeah, they knock it out of the park.
Oh, fucking the Big Brother Hiroshi character.
Oh hell yeah.
He is voiced by
Junichi Suabe.
Yeah, he's done like the fucking teacher with the long hair in My Hero Academia.
Oh yeah. Aizawa. He's Yogasaki in Tatami Galaxy. He's Archer in Fate.
Yeah, he's well known for his sultry voice. I would never really anticipate that kind of voice from that character design, but it fits perfectly.
The character designs in general are so silly, and they feel very like, obviously the series is very much influenced by like Doraemon, and it feels very reminiscent of like those kinds of character designs in a lot of ways, where you have characters that just look like absolute goblins. Why the fuck would you draw someone like that? Why would you contort the human form in such a grotesque fashion as to create something as monstrous as a man with like a butt for a face? I
fucking forgot about that design.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of weird twists and turns that happen over the course of the show. The ending, I'm still not really big on, because it's like, oh, it's just over now.
Yeah.
That was a happy ending, but what happened? What's it's
Which
like,
I guess they changed?
No, that's the ending of the manga.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying there was something different.
No. So there's a little bit of difference towards the end, but it ends up not really like panning out in terms of like, it still ends basically the same way.
Gotcha.
Yes, a contentious end. Know that it has a contentious ending, to say the least, but for basically 90% of it, it's some of the best anime I've ever seen. Definitely one of the best anime I've seen this year.
I think a large part of that is because, very interestingly, this is originally a film adaptation.
Yeah.
A 2-part movie adaptation of the manga.
Yeah.
And
then they did more, I guess. I have no idea.
Yeah, they essentially used that as a base. So I guess like they use that to get the budget they want to like adapt this in as high quality as possible, I guess.
I mean, it looks,
and then
in terms of presentation, it's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I would never have really anticipated that an Asano work would look this good.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, not that I've seen this, but I kind of want to comment on it. The fact that they use like pictures as the background for some shots works so fucking well.
Oh yeah. Well, it's you see that in the opening where it's just like live action backgrounds, and that's obviously very reflective of Ennio Asano's own style, where, you know, they'll go out and take photographs of stuff and like either put filters over it or like redraw it in order to give like this very like realistic backdrop to these silly character designs.
Well, he uses a lot of like Photoshop for the backgrounds and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like he will just use pictures and then or like compile an image, and like I think the spaceship is like something he made by like compiling a bunch of different like electronics or something as like an image or some shit. So he utilizes a lot of like mixed media kind of stuff for the manga. It's not just all like hand drawn, right?
Right.
And I think that it works really interestingly here when they do the like pictures as backgrounds. I can see someone like shitting on it, but it's like, no, this is like perfect.
No, yeah, this perfectly captures his style.
But yeah, as far as like Oran is probably my favorite character this year.
Oh, I dearly love both Oran and Karode. They're so I love every character, honestly. They're so well defined and silly and likable, except for the one asshole. Well, there are numerous asshole characters, but so is the characters you're supposed to like. They're all just wonderful and delightful, and I love seeing them.
You like all the characters you're supposed to, and don't like the ones you're not.
I hate the government.
Well, I guess he does too, because one of them has an ass for a head.
Yeah. The prime minister is just an incompetent boob who's just being puppeted around by everyone else.
He is kind of based. He does come around.
He has maybe the second best frame in the show.
Yeah. It was like the death frame where he's like smoking.
So hard.
It goes so hard. This is it's really hard to like sell this show appropriately without just sounding like an asshole.
Yeah, without just sucking it off.
Yeah, it's
watch it. Why are you watching it yet? Why are you, stop listening to this, go watch it.